What is going on, everybody? We are back. Tornado Tag Podcast. Today's episode is the showstopper, Mr. WrestleMania. The best there is. The best there was. No. Today's episode is going to be based on Shawn Michaels. So last week we did Bret Hart. This week we had a little bit of a hiccup on what day we were going live. We were supposed to record Tuesday. I got a little sick. I lost my smile. I needed some rest. We tried.
You didn't
again.
Want to put Bret over it.
I
That's
didn't want to put
next week. That's going to be next week.
Yeah. Then we were supposed to record yesterday. Not only was I getting a little sick, but then Lilly got a little sick. Lilly not on camera today, not joining us, unfortunately. Her eye is like swollen shut. She's got pink eye. Her voice is killing her. She also got a flu shot, so I think that might have had a little bit to do with it as well.
Yep.
Yeah, so she's a little under the weather. She'll be in the chat hanging out with us. But before we get anything going, new merchandise available. So if you want to grab your Hitman Burke 2024 shirts, there they are. We always got the Hitman Foundation shirts. We got the Showstopper ABJ 2024 shirts. We got the Showstopper Click shirts, and we have the Whatever 2024 because this one hasn't been finished yet, but Lily's still working on it. Also, while I'm going over some stuff, Brian did send me, BP did send me some, I believe PPW things. I did not have a chance to save.
That's fine. We'll wing it.
I'm getting it right now. I have a match graphic and I have a poster.
Yeah, we got a little show going on in 2 days. This Saturday, PPW Thriller at the Slatington Expo Center. We have had some people ask if I can't make it there, how can I watch it? We might be working on some things. But there it is. Unfortunately, Davienne is right there front and center. She will not be on the show. She did sustain an injury. But the rest of that crew is going to be there. VSK, Facade, Danny Moe, Sammy Chaos, Nahir Robles, Diego Hill. It's going to be a fun night. And the big one is going to be that main event. Facade defending the PPW heavyweight title against VSK. Although you never know. I've gotten to see that Rembrandt has made a few updates to that golden ticket briefcase, but he might not be holding it for so long. He said it's on site. Facade, VSK, doesn't matter. It's on site.
And I believe him too. I absolutely believe him. He will get the job done. It's not a spoiler. It's not a prediction. It's not a spoiler. It's not a
guaranteed.
Prediction, it's a
spoiler.
It's not a prediction. It's a spoiler. Facade will be your champion. I'm telling you.
Facade is the champion.
He will be Rembrandt will be a champion. I am out of it today. I'm all juiced up on cough drops. But yeah, I mean, listen, that guy, we've been watching him since probably the day he walked into the company at PPW, and he's shown us how tough he is. He's shown us how much he wants it, how resilient he is. He shows up week in, week out, month after month. Dude is a killer.
The heart that guy puts into everything he does is amazing. Everything he does.
Yep. And a little bit of an announcement. Unfortunately, BP doesn't have his in person, but we were blessed to be bestowed as your brand new TWF Tornado Tag Champion. So when we first got these, this was all just it kind of looked like this, where it was just the gold plate there. But I decided to add a little paint to it. I made it more all the blue in the background. I touched up the yellow and I put the black border around it. Made it more legit, look like the logo. But BP will be getting his belt very, very soon. But these are the brand new Tornado Tag Champions. They are Freebird rules. So they
Yep.
Lily be carrying that one around, and then this one back here will be going to BP momentarily.
Yeah, it's beautiful. If you look at that design, it's that same shape as the WWF Tag Team titles that Shawn Michaels never won with Marty Jannetty.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that in a little bit.
He did go on to win them with another person,
John Cena, I believe John Cena, right? And Triple H. Oh yeah, for no reason.
Yeah,
we'll get into that one. We'll get into that.
Remember, no bashing.
Hey, I will be fair, but I will be honest. I will be fair, but I will be honest.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And then also before we get into the shows I'll be at this week, little bit of heartbreaking news here coming out of one of our friends from the Gleason's Gym in New York. Charles Juan Jeremy.
Cornerman Juan Jeremy,
Cornerman Ron Jeremy. Well, Juan Jeremy. I almost said Ron Jeremy.
No, different guy.
Unfortunately, he passed away. So one of his goals was to wrestle in Japan, and I believe he's 50. They were saying he's 50 years old. He was a vital influence to a lot of careers when it comes to the people coming out of Gleason's Gym. Some of the people I know, Abs just had a really good write-up about him, how if it wasn't for him, Abs wouldn't be Abs, and PJ Savage and Prince Ahmed and Jay Boozy, Jocko, Masha Slamovich, Big Bill that we see on AEW. The list goes on and on and on of the people that this man has influenced. He was another guy right there with Cowboy Billy Walker, who we're really good close with. I did reach out to him today to make sure he's okay. He talked to me, but he's broken up. It's a sad situation for everybody at that camp. We personally never sat in that Gleason's Gym. I have gotten to meet the man Johnny Rods actually with Cornerman at the Sanctuary not too long ago. But we kind of live vicariously through it because of what we from Walker and all the people that he's influenced, as well as Cornerman. So nothing but love and respect to Gleason's Gym. But there's a GoFundMe. He went to go wrestle, I believe, a Kaiju Big Battle show. While after his match, he suffered a heart attack, and we lost him, and he's currently still in Japan. So they're doing a little bit of a GoFundMe. They're trying to raise about 23,000, close to 24,000, to help bring him home and help with funeral costs with the family. They're currently at 14,195. I know that it is tough for people right now to do anything. If you can, just share the GoFundMe out. Just say, hey, listen, a really good guy in the business can use some help. If you could do 5, 10, that's great. If you can't do anything, at least share it out. Get more eyes on it. Get people talking about it. Let's help out somebody in another brother in this journey in professional wrestling that can use our help right now. And rest in peace to him. Thank you for your years in service in this business. And there's a lot of people that he's touched that we've personally have worked with that have made us better people in this business, and because of him, they're probably just as good in this business because of it.
Yeah, those unsung heroes, and Cornerman was one of those unsung heroes who they may never hit those heights that like a guy like a Big Bill has hit, or a Masha Slamovich or the Dudley Boys, but without him shaping them, they probably don't get there themselves.
Yeah. And he was the right-hand man to a WWE Hall of Famer. So like the guy was doing something right. He's a good, everyone. I mean, I met him once. He was a class act dude, and everyone has just glowing reviews for this person. But yeah, rest in peace, brother. If anyone could help, please do so. And then the last bit of thing we got going on, we do have some shows coming up. Hard to segue after that, but But New Era Pro Wrestling on October 19th, we'll be doing Bateman's Revenge. Time to dig deep, and that'll be at the Falcon's Nest at 6:30 p.m. Bell at 7. Unfortunately, this is the first and only New Era Pro Wrestling show I will be missing, but please go and support that huge main event between Bateman, Boss Young Legend, and Sturdy Sal, with a bunch of other good cards. Maybe some fun debuts coming there. Well, who knows?
Yeah.
Can't make any announcements, but some cool stuff might show up there.
Well, at least you're going to be going, not going to be there for good reason. It's not like you're going to be in New Jersey or anything.
Yeah, who would go to Jersey on that day?
Yeah.
Oh, none. I would be. Smash Yard again. Gonna be Kilowatt's birthday. He will be doing ring announcing. It'll be Saturday, October 19th, 2 p.m. at the Shelter in Howell, New Jersey. Smash Master Wrestling, in conjunction with High Tension Wrestling, pulling off the WHW Federation, because Alex unfortunately cannot call it a high tension wrestling show because he no longer owns it. But on the commentary will be myself and Toddy. Look at all those sponsors. So we got Raz, we got James from the Addictedly Speaking podcast, we got Witchcross by Lilly, but I pulled off the big one. I got the entire damn show sponsored, BP, because that's the power of the Tornado Tag podcast and ABJ. Joel, Ruda Entertainment Championship Material has sponsored the entire damn show, and that's all because of me, because I'm amazing. No, yes, but also
Ruda helped too. Ruda helped a little bit too.
because Ruda is he supports me, he supports the brand, the TWF Federation, and we're gonna go and showcase these amazing belts off. And who knows, maybe Ruda has something up the sleeve for maybe something new coming for High Tension that we can crochet. But a lot of cool things.
Stay tuned.
Look at this too. Dylan Mesh not invited.
That does not look like a guy who wants to go to a party, though. That he does not look like he's ready to party.
Dylan is a party animal. I don't understand why the guy's not invited. I think it's kind of a bullshit reason, but it is what it is. I mean, I'll be there with Luca, so there's some wild LLC representation there. These matches are going to be hardcore deathmatch-y style of wrestling. It is going to get out of control very quickly.
Yes, it will.
Lilly will be doing roving cam for this show.
No, that's dangerous.
Yeah, so we're gonna put safety glasses on her. We are going to be putting her in long sleeve and boots. I kind of had a conversation with her about it. She's listening now, but like, if she had a hard time watching the Young Bucks versus Lucha Bros cage match,
yeah.
Lilly, we'll do this live on the air. You gotta stay. You're the camera, so you can't wince. You can't. You have to stay in the pocket. You gotta. It's gonna be good luck. I have never been a part of this crazy style show. Blood and tubes and everything. It's gonna be out of control. But yeah, and once that. You did film Jimmy Lloyd versus Ultramantis, and that was Sesame Street. What you're going to be seeing.
that was tame. That was tame compared to this.
Yeah.
Once I saw JJ Escobar on the card, I'm like, oh boy. Oh no.
Yeah.
No.
I don't know how much she's prepared for this, but it's going to be wild. That's the one with CC Boost, right?
Yeah.
JJ Escobar and CC Boost.
Yeah. Escobar's a madman.
Yeah, and CC Boost is not right in the head. I'm terrified. It'll be available on YouTube, hopefully, and doesn't get the entire network taken down for this show. But we'll see how it goes. But go ahead,
it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, definitely. All right, that's pretty much all we got. Also another thing, you're gonna see Tornado Tag on the network. We have the Bang and Beers just dropped again. Super excited to do Bang and Beers. Truth Behind Illusion is available coming at the end of the month. If you're a member of the channel, it's $1 for just general support. You get cool emojis. Also, there is a $5 tier which gets you all of the early content. So everything that we're talking about now is available to go check out. But also, we just dropped our first ever Camp Leapfrog review with Kilowatt from High Tension, and where we kind of go back and relive all of our Camp Leapfrog days. And we're going to go through the entire series, but we're also going to be doing a lot of older show reviews, where old WWE shows, WF shows, Ring of Honor shows. I'm going to probably resubscribe to IWTV and go back and maybe watch some old Chikara. But a lot of those are going to be predominantly probably me and Lilly going back and rewatching things. But it's a spin-off to using that Freebird rule, where me and Lilly will be going back and watching some old content. BP will be joining us when he can, but you might see maybe twice a week here and there, where Tornado Tag is going to be airing twice a week, where you get some bonus stuff. So that's a lot that's coming soon too. If there's an old show that you want us to review, or maybe you want to see Lilly react to it, it could be independent, it could be anything. We're going to cover wrestling. So the landscape is vast. So if you're maybe a wrestler yourself and you want us to cover one of your matches or one of your shows you're on, let's have some fun.
What if after this High Tension show on the 19th, Lilly just gets really into deathmatch and you're just reviewing old like CZW Tournament of Death?
I'll say this: there's two ways it goes when you experience your first death match. Either one, you're like, that was something. I experienced
it's something.
Thank you. Or there's people who fall in love with it. So who knows? Maybe this is one of those things where she falls in love, and I'm like, Chuck, do me a favor, just take Lily with you this weekend because I can't do it.
she's got to learn under. If she's gonna keep filming these things, she can learn under the wing of Gary.
Gary
the
is a legendary
videographer of all time.
He's just the greatest videographer of all time. Deathmatch included. But yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see. I'm sure we'll cover it, we'll vlog it, and let you guys know exactly how it goes down when Lily experiences her first deathmatch wrestling show.
It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah. When it comes to weekly wrestling, there's really not a lot. I mean, there's some stuff. Wrestle Dreams coming up this weekend. We just seen Bad Blood. I thought Bad Blood was a decent show. A lot of people saying it was a bad show. I didn't hate it at all. I didn't. Everyone, I think a lot of it's unjust. Like there's some hiccups here and there, but I think overall, I don't think it was a bad show. I thought this recent week in AEW is probably their worst Dynamite they've ever produced. It was not a good go home show.
Although we do have the confirmation now they will be staying on Warner Brothers Discovery. They inked a multi-year deal, terms not disclosed, but it is pretty much confirmed that this is going to make sure that AEW is not going anywhere. As long as they're getting that money from Warner Discovery, they're going to get a nice big boost in their rights fees. The rumor is somewhere between $140 and $185 million a year for Dynamite, Collision, and everything like that. And that is going to put them into the black. They are going to be a profitable company, which whether you like AEW, whether you like WWE, no matter what stance you are. And it's funny because we're doing this whole Brett Shawn thing, but there is way too much tribalism in professional wrestling.
Yes.
And the fact that there is another company that's going to be sustainable, that is going to be profitable, and is going to be providing a full-time, lucrative living for probably 100+ people, backstage, announcers, wrestlers, referees, crew, that is a good thing. That is a great thing.
And there's also rumors that they have another show inked, and it might be a AEW show on Fox.
Yeah, the rumor has been Shockwave.
Yeah.
That's been the rumor that they've been shopping it. They did just announce a deal, but I don't know what show it's for, or it might just be a show they cobble together from existing footage. They are going to be on Fox Sports Mexico, so that's a good deal. And that's something where AEW is very strong. I know people like to point out their TV ratings, and even though their TV ratings aren't amazing, typically they are pretty strong for the modern TV market. Not a lot of cable shows are making 800. They're getting 800,000 viewers a show. They did take their lumps this week because they're off their regular night, and NXT did pretty far outdraw them. But they're fine. They're doing just fine. Right? You can make fun of their attendance, you can make fun of their ratings, you do whatever you want. They're making money. This has come about Warner having a 10% ownership. It's pretty much confirmed that they do not. I forget what happened with this, where they would have had to make a disclosure about their any stakeholders they have, even though it's a private company. I forget what happened where they would have to disclose that, but they did. Oh, I know exactly what it was. It's this lawsuit that's going on. The Tate Twins and Kevin Kelly's lawsuit against AEW. Part of this disclosure is that no company owns, I believe no publicly traded company owns 10% or more of AEW, because there's always been a rumor that Warner might have a small stake in the company, under 10%. And Tony Khan did also say that he owns 100% of the voting shares. He has 100% of the voting power in the company.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I said, AEW, whatever company you support, it's pro wrestling, and as long as it's thriving, it's good. I'm telling you now, if you're a diehard WWE fan, you don't want AEW to go anywhere, because competition is healthy for the business, and it makes the other one work better. There's a time when this podcast first started, and WWE was the only game in town, and every single week we were like, this is awful. It's terrible. Wrestling, like, for how good wrestling is looking like it's becoming, this is a tough time to watch WWE as a product. And that's all we did is say, and it wasn't because we hated WWE, it's because they had no competition. They were running away with it.
Well, I think something else happened that made WWE better too. I think somebody went away, and the product got pretty good right after.
I mean, but I remember a time early on when this podcast first started where the McMahons came out and said, "Sorry, we've listened to you. We're going to change," and came out on TV with the whole family and didn't change a thing.
Nope.
Thing. So if you really are that person that's like, this one company needs to go away, blah blah blah, they're trying to, you don't want that. I promise you don't want that.
I want more companies to do it. I wish Impact would get a TV deal. I wish MLW would get a TV deal. I would love to see AEW get a deal for Ring of Honor on True TV or something like that. The more a rising tide lifts all boats, and the more that's out there, the more wrestler opportunities is going to be for wrestlers, for other people within the wrestling industry. It's a good thing. If you like professional wrestling and you want it to exist and be in a good place, this is a good thing. And it's in a way better place than it's been for a long time. Like it's more socially acceptable. People are throwing money at WWE to put their big events in their city. There have been tough times, and this is not one of them. This is a good time to be a pro wrestling fan, and it has been for a few years now.
Yeah, and looking at the other landscape of that, we have a time right now where people are actually talking about NXT in a positive light again. We are leading into the lead up to a show that we can now say we're both going to be at. On the 27th, we're going to experience our very first Halloween Havoc. So here's what we're doing, BP. Me and Lily are going, not full cosplay, but we're dressing up for Halloween Havoc. Now, we're not coming as characters or anything full blown, but she's going to represent Mr. Eddie Guerrero at the show. She's going to have an Eddie Guerrero t-shirt, maybe even do her hair to look like an old school mullet. I don't know if she's going to put a mustache on. Who knows? But I have that cool Eddie Guerrero Halloween Havoc mask that I'm going to rock. With maybe just an Eddie with a t-shirt and just drink beer and a mask all night long. So I'm walking around full-blown mask the whole time. I'm carrying around my titles. We're going to bring our titles. We're going to walk around with our TWF titles of Halloween Havoc and drinking beers. I said drinking beers.
What?
And it's going to be a blast.
Rey Mysterio, yes. Eddie Guerrero did not wear a mask.
No, I'm going to be wearing the mask.
Okay. You said Eddie Guerrero. Yeah, it's fine.
Oh, did I? I'm sorry. Yeah. But it's gonna be a good time. I'm really stoked, man. I have not been to a Halloween Havoc show, and the fact that it's gonna be in Hershey, Pennsylvania. I mean, that's chocolate. I mean, that's trick or treat as you can get. I hope that becomes a thing. What if Halloween Havoc stays in Hershey?
That would be cool. Also, because it's a little bit of a historical nod, because the first Halloween Havoc ever was in Philadelphia.
There you go. I'm pumped. I'm excited. And then we're going to come back to you guys after Halloween Havoc happens on the 27th. And we're going to be doing the history of Halloween Havoc on the 29th, right before Halloween, for Tornado Tag. So that's going to be really, really cool. Lily says, I'm making the pants too, for mine at least. There you go. That's awesome. I don't know if I'm going to go that hard in the paint. I think I might. I know that t-shirt company I like, Homage. They do really cool, like old school. Like I have the ladder match shirt between Shawn and Razor. I think I might go on there. So I think they have a Halloween Havoc one with Eddie and Ray. So I might buy that shirt and just wear the mask and then just walk around with the mask and the t-shirt on.
And I know one thing that WWE likes to do with their Halloween Havoc, and I hope they bring it to Hershey, is and the first time they ever did it was
make a deal.
And the first time they ever did it was in Philadelphia. Sting and Jake Roberts. Spin the wheel.
I have that t-shirt too. I have a spin the wheel, make a deal t-shirt.
Gonna be a fun time.
Ooh, I can't wait.
Fun time.
Yeah, we have a lot of cool stuff coming up. I can't wait. Wrestling is fun. But a huge reason why people are talking about NXT and they're enjoying it is because
somebody who will be at
the guy that we're about to talk about tonight, and that is the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. BP, let's get into our last history lesson before we get into our debate next week between Shawn and Bret Hart.
That's going to be fierce. So yeah, we talked about Bret last week. This week it's going to be all about the Heartbreak Kid. I think at this point you should be the Heartbreak Man, though. He's now almost 60 years old. He's almost 60 years old.
Someone made a post today saying I've been watching wrestling so long that last time I'm so old that these two guys had hair, didn't need glasses to read, and were the most controversial guys on television.
Oh yeah, Shawn Michaels Triple H. We're going to talk about that here. Yeah. So before
now
we
there
get
might
to
be real quick too, there may be some things that we just kind of skip over. So if this is your first time listening or you're tuning in for this one and you're like, you didn't cover the Montreal Screwjob or any of the Bret stuff at all, that's because we did a 2-hour podcast on Bret Hart, and a lot of the crossover was there first. So if we skip over things, it's because we've already talked about it. We're going to kind of go past a lot of that, and then the debate episode, the presidential debate episode, will cover more.
Or at the very least, let's explore some things from Shawn's perspective, because that's who the topic is here.
Yes.
And before he's Shawn Michaels, he is Michael Shawn Hickenbottom. Hickenbottom. There, that's his real name. Yes, I think that's a pretty well-known fact. But even before he was in wrestling, he did not like he always was one of those guys that went by his middle name. He always liked to go by Shawn. And he was a guy that moved around a lot. He was a military brat. His father was in the service, and they jumped around a lot and wound up settling in San Antonio, Texas. He was a pretty good athlete, played a lot of sports in high school, and he gets into wrestling through Jose Lothario, who was
previous to this, he's obsessed growing up with professional wrestling, so much to the point where him and his buddy did a no-ring match in front of their entire school for a talent show, and Shawn bladed during a no-ring match in front of his entire school. I was an entertainer.
Always a bit of a ham, isn't he? Always a bit of a ham.
Yeah.
So yeah, Jose Lothario was a pretty well-known guy in the Texas wrestling scene and the Mexican wrestling scene. Super Sock, because that was his nickname. He had the big right hand or the big left hand. I don't remember exactly which one, but that is the guy who kind of takes Shawn Michaels under his wing and is going to guide his career in the very early goings here. And this is still in the territory days, so keep that in mind. Shawn Michaels breaks in the early 1980s, so we're starting to see the big war in the 80s, but it is really more of a WWF is just starting to make moves. Vince has bought the company from his father. They have pulled out of the NWA. Hulk Hogan is going to wins the WWF title in 1984. And while this is all happening, Shawn Michaels is getting his start in San Antonio, Texas, and there's a little bit of an overlap here. So San Antonio as a territory is run by Joe Blanchard, who is Tully's father, Tessa's grandfather. Southwest Wrestling is the territory there, but they're not doing so hot. And kind of encroaching in on East Texas is what would later become the Universal Wrestling Federation, but at this point is still Mid-South Wrestling, which is Bill Watts' company. And they are one of the larger territories. They are really, really catching fire. The Junkyard Dog is a top star. He was like their Hulk Hogan. They're running big shows in New Orleans. They're running all over Louisiana and a lot of the that deep south, that Gulf Coast area. And they're starting to branch into Texas. They're working a little with Paul Bosch out of Houston Wrestling. They're working with some of the promoters there. And this is where Shawn Michaels gets his start. His first match is a match against a guy named Art Cruz, who was a regular in the area. And people were so impressed that they put him on TV for his second match. If you go to the WWE Network, where am I? If you go to Peacock, if you're outside of the United States, if you go to WWE Network, you can actually see a match from the October 20th, 1984 episode of Mid-South Wrestling. And it's a squash match. He's an enhancement talent here, but it's Shawn Michaels and another guy, Jim Hornet, against the tag team of Dr. Death Steve Williams and Hercules Hernandez, who will figure into some stuff later on here. And that's Shawn's second match. You can literally go see it now on Peacock. And he does kind of bounce around Mid-South a little bit. He's kind of he's paying his dues. He's doing a lot of undercard matches. He's losing most of them, but he's paying his dues. He does have a brief stop off. He does have a brief stop off here as well in the Kansas City territory, and this is the first time that he is going to meet up with a guy who is going to be pretty synonymous with his career for the first 10 years or so, Marty Jannetty. And this is for NWA Central States Wrestling, which is promoted by Bob Geigel and Harley Race. They team a few times here, but he's not there long. He also goes back to the San Antonio territory to his hometown, but there's a little bit of turmoil here. What had actually happened is one of Joe Blanchard's partners sold their Primo TV spot in San Antonio to the Von Erichs to air World Class, and then they got a lesser TV spot on a Spanish language station in the middle of the night. So Blanchard just kind of threw his hands up and moved on. But Shawn Michaels is going to be a fixture here, and this is where he's going to be in his first successful tag team. But it's not with Marty Jannetty. It's with a guy. Remember last week how we always said that early through line somehow Brett always crossed paths with Jacques Rougeau.
Mm-hmm.
So Shawn Michaels' version of Jacques Rougeau is going to be Paul Diamond. And Paul Diamond and Shawn Michaels are going to be a team called American Force. And there's actually a weird angle where Chavo Guerrero Sr., who was, I believe, also the booker here, and Al Madril were the tag team champions, and they broke up, and they had a match where the winner of the match was just going to win both tag titles. So Chavo wins the match and says, well, I don't really want to be a tag wrestler anymore. I want to focus on my singles career. So he literally hands the titles over to American Force, which starts a very concrete pattern of title changes involving Shawn Michaels without there actually being a match. So that's going to be. They always talk about Vacant being like the 35-time world champion. I think he beat Shawn for half of those.
Yeah.
So, but this time it's somebody given it. Chavo probably didn't want to lose the titles, so he just handed them to Shawn and Paul Diamond. They have a nice little run there, but while Shawn is kind of rising up the ranks, he's doing pretty well for himself in San Antonio. Marty Jannetty stayed in Kansas City, and he did great. Marty Jannetty became the Central States Wrestling champion. He was a top guy in Kansas City, but that territory was really starting to fade out. Vince is really putting pressure on people. Harley Race finally around 1986 kind of throws in the towel, gives in, and says, you know what, I'm going. It's not working here. The NWA is in Crockett's control. Flair's taken over as the top guy in the NWA. It's time to put a crown on my tights and do a program with Hogan. And so the Kansas City territory is really, really, really fading fast. And Vern Gagne, the AWA, which is also having some issues, is going to put the call out to Marty Jannetty. And the AWA had a few years before this lost half of one of their preeminent teams, which was the High Flyers. And the High Flyers was a team of Greg Gagne, Vern Gagne's son, who was never going anywhere because he's the boss's son. But his longtime tag partner, Jim Brunzell, does leave the AWA for the WWF around 1985-86, and he will form the Killer Bees with Brian Blair there. So they have a need for a young, athletic team. They want to kind of take that Rock and Roll Express model of having these two sympathetic baby faces who can work really well and sell really well. And really they're there to attract some of the younger female fans, the teeny bopper crowd. And so Marty Jannetty says, hey, I used to tag with this guy Shawn Michaels. You should bring him in too. And the Midnight Rockers are born. The Midnight Rockers are coming to the AWA, almost that perfect hybrid of the Rock and Roll Express and the Midnight Express. But they're baby faces, they're fiery, they're energetic, and they get into a really good feud with Playboy Buddy Rose and Doug Summers, who are one of the top tag teams here in the AWA at this point.
Real quick, I never noticed these tag team titles in the AWA. I like them. They're very similar to these.
Yeah, they are. And
now,
I don't know where
you don't see it in this photo, but that world in the center is essentially the same world that's in the middle of what you would soon see on the WWF tag team titles.
Yeah, no, that you're absolutely right. And they, as you can see here, they do wind up beating Rose and Summers for those AWA tag team titles. And they're doing really well. Like the Midnight Rockers are very popular. This is when they start to do the Wrestle Rock Rumble in 1986. The infamous Super Bowl Shuffle parody, where you find out that surprisingly Nick Bockwinkel and Larry Zbyszko are decent rappers, but the Midnight Rockers not so much. The Midnight Rockers didn't do so well with their little thing. But it is funny because this really becomes their calling card in character and out of character, that they love to party. They are the party animals.
And Shawn said in a few of his documentaries, he goes, I thought I was a partier. Like I was an athlete. I partied. I did my thing. He goes, but Marty took me to another level.
Yeah.
Genetti's still going strong.
Oh,
Like,
he is. He is.
like,
I don't know about strong, but he's still going.
Oh,
I don't know how strong it is, but
Party
he's
of Marty, baby. That guy, wild. Wild
So
stuff.
they have an excellent run in the AWA. They do finally get those titles off of Doug Summers. They chased them for a long time, almost a year, finally get them off of Rose and Summers, who, by the way, if we want to kind of set some things for the future, the manager of Buddy Rose and Doug Summers is the one and only Sherry Martel. So that's somebody who will come into play a little bit later too. And
we'll get into that. Yeah, I won't bury the lead.
So this is going to come to an end, though, in the middle of 1987, because the Midnight Rockers, even though they're going real strong, are going to drop the titles to the Evil Russians, Soldat Ustinov and Boris Zukov, because they're getting the call from Vince. Vince is looking to bolster that tag team division in 1987, and the Midnight Rockers are right up his alley. And he's going to drop the Midnight. There's going to be the Rockers, and the Rockers are going to make their WWF debut in a dark match on a TV taping, and that's the only match they're going to have, because their parting ways kind of rub some people the wrong way.
Now, and according to Shawn, now Shawn later on in his life has recanted his stories, and he even said recently on Logan Paul, which, if you're love or hate Logan Paul, I think he did a really good interview with Shawn Michaels. Shawn says, listen, I'm not shy to say that we were party animals, but more me than Marty knew that this was a big opportunity for us. This is something I really wanted. He goes, we went into the bar, and I forget who he said, but the guy was like, I heard you guys are party animals. And the guy smashed a bottle over his own head and ate and chewed the glass. So Shawn said, anything you could do, I could do better, and smashed the bottle over his head. And he goes, that's all that happened. And he says, we drank the rest of the night. No problems happened. It wasn't a crazy night.
Right.
But wrestling stories get carried away, and Shawn got drunk and threw bottles off the wall, and Marty, and he says, if that happened after we left, it happened, but it wasn't us who did it. I think we got a bad rap. That was his story.
And there's a lot of politics in wrestling. There's a lot of people protecting their spots. So yeah, it's definitely plausible. And the thing with Shawn, especially now when he talks about things, yeah, he's not going to remember everything. No wrestler does. Like, a lot of Bret's recollections are a little stronger, because Bret would take like copious notes throughout his career and write stuff down. And especially through the stuff in 97 with the screw leading up to the screw job, he was working on a book. He had a film crew following him. Shawn's gone off of memory. And again, he's admitted, like, these were some wild times.
Yeah. And the big thing with Shawn too, sorry to cut you off, BP, a big, huge thing with Shawn too is, and we'll get into it a little later, is Shawn was at a point too where nobody wanted to sell. Nobody wanted to work for this kid, because Shawn was someone who worked his way up, but he wasn't a kid that was like, he was the Mark fan who found his way into wrestling, and he wasn't one of the boys. It's like people, and he was undersized. People didn't see him as the big muscular guy. He wasn't the football player who blew his knee out or found by a bouncer because he was a giant body. So for a long time, Shawn had to fight and claw his way up, because unlike Bret, coming from a wrestling family, Shawn didn't have really any back support, or I know someone who knows someone type deal. And a lot of people tried to bury him for it.
Yeah, very, very true. And it was a thing where there was probably some resentment of them coming in. Their reputation preceded them. And yeah, that one little thing, no matter how it shook out, that was enough for WWF to say, you know what, never mind. We don't want you after all, after one match. And
wasn't Atlantic City too? Wasn't it like they were in Atlantic City when this happened?
I think you're thinking of WrestleMania 5.
Oh, okay.
This was, I don't know where this taping was, but I don't think it was. I don't think they really did TV tapings in Atlantic City. They really did them a lot in like Indiana or like Hershey, even places like that. So Vern didn't want them back right away, so they do wind up staying within the AWA. But at this point, the Memphis territory, which is also being called the CWA, the Continental Wrestling Alliance, brings them in as the Midnight Rockers, and they are pushed to the moon pretty much immediately. They win the At this point, the Memphis tag titles, because they're affiliated with the AWA and not the NWA, are being called the AWA Southern Tag Team titles, and they win them pretty quickly. And they have a really nice run down there in Memphis. And eventually, and it didn't take too long, Vern comes calling again. And he's like, all right, come back. You know, we bygones are bygones. Yeah, we'll welcome you back. By the end of 87, they're back in the AWA, and they're in a feud with the original Midnight Express, Dennis Condrey and Randy Rose. And they win their second AWA tag team titles. And they did this thing in Memphis because they were going back and forth for a little bit, and they would defend the AWA World Tag Team titles in Memphis too. But they were saying this whole thing where the AWA would not allow them to have two sets of tag titles at the same time, so they had to relinquish the Southern Tag Team titles, starting again a long and storied legacy of Shawn Michaels not losing a title in the ring. So,
okay.
This one's not his fault. This one's not his fault. But they are doing a great job in the AWA. This reign's going to be very short too, though, and for the same exact reason. The same exact reason as before, where they are going to get that call from WWF after all. About a year after their first little teeny tiny run, less than a year even. It was early 1988. They get the call again from New York. They get the call from the WWF. You know, we were a little hasty the first time. Let's bring you in. Let's bring you in. And at this point, there are a lot of tag teams that are getting phased out of the WWF. The British Bulldogs are getting phased out because Dynamite Kid's body is wrecked. The Killer Bees have kind of run their course, and they're getting phased out. Brian Blair's about to leave the company. Brenzel sticks around for a little bit. Mm-hmm. So especially on the babyface side, they're getting very light. At WrestleMania 4, very infamously, Rick Martel gets seriously hurt, and he's out for a year. So those are three top babyface tag teams that are now kind of on the shelf a little bit. So it's really on that babyface side. The Hart Foundation, they're bringing in the Powers of Pain to do a program with Demolition. The Rougeaus, but the Rougeaus are about to go heel. Actually, the Hart Foundation, they're going to do a double turn. The Rougeaus are baby faces. The Harts are heels. But they're going to flip those two to get the Harts on the babyface side to make the babyface side a little bit stronger. And hey, let's get the Rockers too. The Rock, everybody knew how talented those guys were. Maybe we were a little harsh to boot them out the first time. And this is pretty much it. This is the beginning of the run of Shawn Michaels and for a while Marty Jannetty. And they're not overnight successes. They get over pretty well, but they don't really push them super hard. Again, undersized guys have to fight for every opportunity. The muscle guys like the Powers of Pain are going to get more chances. Brett and Anvil have been there for a while. They're going to get more chances. But the Rockers are turning heads. They're starting to make moves, even though they're at first put with the Conquistadors, who are like one of the lower end heel tag teams, and they're not really getting a lot of competition. The first Rockers match, it really stands out to me because I had this on a VHS tape I recorded off the TV in 1988. It was the Halloween episode of Primetime Wrestling. And that Halloween episode of Primetime Wrestling, the main event is from Madison Square Garden, and it's the Rockers and Demolition. Demolition are still the heel tag champions. And they had a really good match. The Rockers are just great baby faces in peril. And this is going to lead to a little program with the Brainbusters. And the Rockers are steadily becoming that fixture in the WWF tag team division that they would be for years. Mm-hmm. And the only kind of delay they had was in 1990 at SummerSlam. Power and Glory are going to wrestle the Rockers, but Shawn had a legitimate knee injury. And they didn't want to not advertise this match or pull the match. So they had a little gimmick where they had Hercules attacked Paul Roma, or Hercules and Roma attacked Michael's knee, and he just laid on the apron while Marty just got beat up for the whole match. And Shawn was out for about 3 months. Although I did skip over something that's very important. When they leave the AWA the second time, they drop the titles to Bad Company, which is managed by Diamond Dallas Page in one of his early stops. But Bad Company is Pat Tanaka and Paul Diamond. So there's Paul Diamond again. He just keeps popping up every now and then in Shawn's story. And he will continue to do so for a long time. As a matter of fact, WrestleMania 6 the next year, 1991. Or no, I'm sorry, WrestleMania 6 in 1990, not 91. The Rockers are going to wrestle the Orient Express. And I don't know at this point if it was still Akio Sato and Pat Tanaka or if it was Kato and Pat Tanaka. But Kato, the Orient Express, is once again Paul Diamond. There he is again.
Popping up.
So toward the end of 1990, the Rockers are still running strong. The Hart Foundation have beaten Demolition for the tag titles. Demolition's starting to phase out a little bit, phase out a lot. They're going to do a program with the Road Warriors and kind of be done. So the plan comes into play where the Rockers, we talked about this a little bit last week, where the Rockers are going to have that infamous match on Saturday night's main event. The ideas come down to push the Hart Foundation as a singles group or singles competitors rather than a tag team, and Brett's going to get a little bit of a rocket strapped to him. But first, they got to get the tag titles off of them. And they have the infamous match where the rope breaks. Brett and Shawn are yelling at the referee to fix it. They're yelling instructions on how to fix it. They just don't do it. And they decide not to air it. And then they ultimately decide, we're just not going to put the titles on the Rockers. And at times, Shawn has blamed Brett and said maybe Brett did a little politicking and said, I want to keep the belts for a little longer. We'll drop them at WrestleMania 7. And that's why the Rockers never got their run. But it's also time in 1991 or in the 92 to wind down the Rockers. So they've had a great run. They've had a great almost 4-year run in the WWF as a top babyface tag team. Never really hit that height, and they absolutely should have. They were a phenomenal team, had great matches with the Brain Busters, had great matches with everybody. But it's time for them to do the same thing, and it's time for Shawn and Marty, but especially Shawn, to get a look at as a singles wrestler. Mm-hmm. And so the infamous barbershop in January of 1992, where Marty Jannetty was so afraid of Shawn Michaels that he dove through a barbershop window to get away from him.
He tried to get out of there.
Yeah. Now, he was terrified.
A little more to this too is that they're getting offered. Well, the writing was kind of coming to the wall, and Marty was kind of politicking backstage, and he wanted more money, and they weren't getting it, and essentially Marty, without going to Shawn, goes to Vince and says, we were just offered a huge contract over in WCW. If you don't meet it, we're out of here. And Vince was like, well, have fun. See you later. Yep. Well, and then Shawn's like, well, where's this contract? Where are we getting? And he goes, well, we don't really have one. I was using it as leverage. And Shawn's like, don't use my career as leverage like that. So Vince went to Shawn went to Vince and was like, bro, he's an idiot. I'm sorry. Can we stay? And essentially like, yeah, you can stay, but you guys aren't a team anymore. And Shawn's like, you know what? I think that's what's best for me going forward is maybe this guy's a little more of a recluse. Yeah, a little bit of a recluse. And that was a huge reasoning why they split. And I'm going to be honest, as a kid, I loved it. I knew this is where I knew I was a little sick in the head, because growing up, I was, like I said, I liked heel Macho Man. I loved Mr. Perfect. I loved Piper. I loved the bad guys. I was like Rick Martel, loved Ravishing Rick Rude. So when Shawn turns heel here, I'm in heaven.
And you can see it coming. Like he's wearing the black leather jacket. It's so telegraphed, but they do it so well. That barbershop turn is so incredible. And they're lucky they did it when they could. The initial plan here was for Marty to sit out for a few weeks, but they were going to do the Rockers Explode. They were going to do Shawn versus Marty at WrestleMania 8. As you may know, Shawn Michaels wrestled El Matador at WrestleMania 8. And the reason why is not that long after they do the breakup, we have an incident in Florida where Marty Jannetty is with a girl at a bar, and the girl is caught using a fake ID. It turns out she's 19 years old, and it turns out that they have cocaine on. It turns out that they have some cocaine on them. Yeah. It turns out that Marty in this argument winds up hitting a cop, and so there's a lot of charges coming from this. And Marty Jannetty was ultimately sentenced to about 6 months on house arrest, and he was summarily fired from the WWF. Now, that leads to Shawn Michaels having this match with Tito Santana at WrestleMania 8, and it leads to, at SummerSlam, they had this fun thing where Sensational Sherry, is immediately put with Shawn Michaels. She's just head over heels in love with him. She holds his mirror while he primps and checks himself out. She sings his theme song, but she's also, I don't know if they ever kind of alluded that, because people would always know that before she was Sensational Sherry, she was Sherry Martel. I don't know if they ever kind of alluded that her and the model Rick Martel were related or not, or something like that, even though they weren't. neither one of his last name is Martel for real.
Mm-hmm.
But they do this match at SummerSlam 1991, where it's Michaels and it's Michaels and the model, and they have this gentleman's agreement not to hit each other in the face. And Sherry's, I don't think they were saying anything about her and the model being related, because she was kind of fawning over both of them. And she like freaks out when they're both hitting each other in the face and they're not paying attention to her, and she faints. And they carry her out, and it's hokey, but it's just the right kind of hokey.
One of the guys I always try to like sell for him to do that to people is Samuel Thompson and Valerie Verman, like not in the face, like that is, you know what I mean? Like I always want them to use that bit in their wrestling because it reminds me so much. Like I think Samuel is the closest thing to like a young Adam Cole, Shawn Michaels style, where he's kind of undersized, but his work rate is so good.
Yeah, Sam Thompson's amazing.
Just announced he's going to be working Brian Kendrick
at CZW,
which is a good spot for him.
And he's going to learn so much from Brian too. That's going to be great.
That's going to launch that kid. But yes, but Sherry at this point is now, in my opinion, a huge changing point for Shawn in his career, because Sherry understood that the boys didn't like Shawn, that a lot of the guys didn't want to bump for Shawn, didn't want to work for Shawn, didn't want to put Shawn to that next level. And Sherry, he said during matches, Sherry'd be like, throw him out here. So Shawn would dump a guy to the outside, and Sherry would fuck them up. She would dig her nails in their back. She would slap them. She'd like, you fucking get him over. That's your fucking job tonight.
Sherry was not afraid of anybody.
And she legit put the fear of God into some of Shawn's opponents. And because Sherry was respected and Sherry had more clout than Shawn did, people listened and they started working for Shawn. And I think Sherry is vital for Shawn hitting that next gear in his career.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree. And it gave him legitimacy because she was with major acts. She was with Randy Savage. She was with Ted DiBiase. She was with people who had main event at WrestleManias, and now she's with Shawn Michaels. So it lends that legitimacy of like Sherry's somebody that's not with everybody. She's with top heels. And to put her with Shawn immediately really did help lift. And they would do like little things like after his match, like a few minutes, like 10, 15 minutes later, they would say, ladies and gentlemen, Shawn Michaels has left the building, or Bobby Heenan would say it on commentary. Like just these little tiny things were great touches. And also in the summer of 91 is when he starts to, or 92 is when he starts to have some matches with Bret Hart all over the house shows. They have a ladder match that finds its way to Coliseum Video, which is the first ladder match in WWF history. And when Bret is starting to move up to that world title picture, Shawn's going to kind of slide in and really continue that legacy of the Intercontinental title being the quote unquote work rate belt, the worker belt. And a lot of this happens because of the scandals that WWF is involved in, where Vince McMahon is, and the WWF is kind of embroiled in this whole steroid trial. The George Zahorian thing is happening. And they say, and we covered this last week, where basically everybody's going to get off steroids. They're all going to be drug tested. And two of the people that are immediately gone are the Ultimate Warrior and the British Bulldog. And the British Bulldog just so happens to be the Intercontinental Champion, just beat Bret Hart for it. He's got to lose that title on the way out. And in the very last Saturday Night's Main Event for a long time, until they brought it back in like 2006, Shawn Michaels wins the Intercontinental title from the British Bulldog on his way out of the company. And now he is kind of really cemented into that level of, this is a guy to take seriously. This isn't just some guy from a tag team.
And this is the first moniker as Shawn Michaels in this area has his first moniker.
Is this where he gets the Heartbreak Kid?
No, he is the boy toy.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah. I forgot about that one, honestly.
Yeah.
My favorite era of Shawn is boy toy Shawn Michaels with the mullet, waterfall mullet, the bangs, the glasses, the mirror, the I'm too sexy for this crowd jacket. Like that is my
it was right in the middle of Right Said Fred too. So that was perfect.
Yeah,
and he plays the character so well. He really did kind of lose himself in the character, which was always a good thing. And he winds up, Marty Jannetty does wind up coming back in the end of 92, beginning of 93, where this is where Sherry and Shawn get separated, because Marty goes to hit Shawn with the mirror. I don't think Shawn gets out of the way. He does the Ultimate Heel thing and pulls Sherry into the way. and Sherry gets clocked with the mirror, and she's out. She is out cold, and that leads to the Royal Rumble where Shawn beats Jannetty, and apparently, like, the rumor here was that they weren't happy with the match, and Shawn blamed Marty, and Marty got fired, but then everything kind of cooled off a little bit, and they brought Marty back a few months later. But they do have finally have that blow-off match a year later, and Shawn does get the win, which takes him to WrestleMania 9, where he's going to take on Tatanka. And Sherry is now kind of against Shawn. Sherry comes out in support of Marty. Sherry comes out with Tatanka, and Shawn had Luna Vachon as his manager in that WrestleMania 9 and 93. And Marty's going to come back on an early episode of Monday Night Raw, which, by the way, Shawn Michaels does wrestle on the first Raw. He defends his title against Intercontinental title against Max Moon, who is
Camp Leapfrog.
Max Moon.
Yeah, he was in Camp Leapfrog.
Oh, was he?
Early days of Camp Leapfrog. Yeah, he was. There's a whole thing they talk about it.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Yeah. but the man under the mask is Paul Diamond.
Paul Diamond.
Once again, Paul Diamond once again. So when Marty comes back, he actually upsets Michaels and wins the Intercontinental title, but it's very brief. Michaels is going to win it back a few weeks later, and he's going to have some help. He's going to have a new bodyguard, somebody to watch his back. He doesn't have Cher anymore, but now he's running on diesel power. Vinny Vegas has made his way over from I almost said the WCW, like I'm Bret Hart. The WCW.
The WCW.
Where in WCW, when he was Vinny Vegas, he worked. Kevin Nash Diesel worked a lot with the Diamond Stud, who was Scott Hall, and Shawn and Scott Hall crossed paths all the way back in Kansas City, where Shawn and Marty, one of the teams they wrestled in their short run there was a team called American Starship, which was Starship Eagle, who was Dan Spivey, and Starship Coyote, who was Scott Hall, with a really weird name. So you can see these little germinations of all these people who would have really.
Wasn't he in a tag team too with Scott Hall with Kurt Hennig, or they were a tag team?
Yeah, they were the AWA tag team champions. They were in that Wrestle Rock Rumble thing.
I have to go. I've yet to go back and watch any of their stuff together, but like that's gotta be a dream team. Like, how does that?
Yeah. Well, they kind of split them up just because of really wanting to push Kurt as a top guy. And I think Scott Hall, it's amazing he wasn't in WWF way before he was, just the way he looked and the way he could wrestle. Scott Hall was so phenomenally talented. And I think he was getting I think he may have come in for a little bit as like Gator Scott Hall, but it didn't work out. And I know he had some looks from WCW and NWA too.
He moves so well for his size too.
So in the chat, there was that question of Conan being Max Moon. Conan was originally supposed to be Max Moon, and even before that, they had a character called the Comic Kid. He got cold feet about moving from Mexico to the WWF, so they were going to scrap the character. And then Paul Diamond, who was still wrestling as Kato, was one of the guys that like fit right into the costume, and they could still use this costume they paid out the nose for. Yeah, and so he wound up being Max Moon. So Shawn is going to be the champion through most of 1993 until he and this is something that there's some controversy here. He failed a steroid test, and he is adamant. And this is a guy, again, Shawn Michaels, in his more recent years, has been very open about things that happened in his career that he did that don't necessarily paint him in the most positive of lights. And he says, I didn't take steroids. Like I was not on steroids. Maybe he had a bad sample, but he said this is another thing where he's like, I didn't do this. But they suspended him anyway. He made some noise about maybe going to WCW. They stripped him of the Intercontinental title. But this is going to lead to a match that's really going to put him and another guy on the map. Because while he is vacating the Intercontinental title, he refuses
to send it back too. He won't.
Yeah. He won't get the back to have a new one made. And you can tell there's a little difference. The new one is shinier. If you ever see the two belts hung up, the new one is shinier. So a new belt is made, and it is won by the bad guy, Razor Ramon. But Shawn Michaels is coming back right around the time Razor wins it, and he has his IC title still too. And they're going back and forth over who is the rightful champion. And of course, that's going to lead to that big ladder match at WrestleMania 10. One of the best matches in WWF history, WWE history to this day, that Razor wins, but both guys come out of that match looking like stars.
And it does really, really benefit Shawn at this point too, because they become close. Shawn,
Yes.
Diesel, and Scott. I'm sorry, Shawn, Kevin, and Scott are very, very close. Same as Sean Waltman. Like this is your early. This is the click forming, and it really
Hunter's
helps
not
that
there yet, but Hunter's not there yet, but
it really helps that you have these guys who are probably problematic, but they do have a good business mind of how things should work and how things should go. They legit have, because here's one thing in pro wrestling. This is not just pro wrestling. This is any form of entertainment. This is any form of anything. Joey Diaz says his best. You only need 3 cocksuckers to take over the world. If you have 3 motherfuckers who are going to have your back, you can take over anything. And that's essentially what the Click did. In a business where everybody was your friend to your face, but would stab you in the back to get over ahead on somebody else, the Click stayed true to the Click. And they said, no matter what, we have each other's back. So when Shawn's refusing to send the title and he's testing hot, whatever it may be for steroids, he's got 2 guys now, and his buddy wins the title. He's like, just bring him in. We'll do a good match. I swear it will right all wrongs. Just let's tell the story and stuff like that. Vince liked that. Like he liked when people had a little bit of balls that would kind of challenge his authority sometime. And that kind of what Shawn, Scott, and Kevin did.
He definitely did like that. And the weird thing after that WrestleMania 5 match, I don't think there was a specific injury, but Shawn just kind of winds down a little bit. He doesn't really wrestle for half of 1994. And he's doing the Heartbreak Hotel. He's doing some interview segments. He's staying relevant. He's staying in front of the camera. He was even doing some commentary on Raw in 94 and 93 or 94 and 95. And now it's kind of Diesel that's going to go front and center. Diesel's going to beat Razor Ramon for the Continental title. Diesel's going to challenge Bret Hart at King of the Ring for the title. And Shawn's going to be in the corner. Shawn's going to be the heel manager here. And that kind of comes to an end as we get to the end of 1994 because Vince is starting to see dollar signs in Kevin Nash. Diesel had that big push in the 94 Royal Rumble. He was Intercontinental champion for a little bit. Had a really good match at Razor Ramon at SummerSlam. Him and Shawn, in fact, when Shawn comes back, the Head Shrinkers are tag champs. Nah, they don't need him. Like literally a night or 2 before SummerSlam, where one of the advertised matches is the Head Shrinkers against Bam Bam Bigelow and IRS for the tag titles. Shawn Michaels and Diesel win the tag titles at a house show and never really defend them. Never really are any programs or anything. It was just an instance of Shawn going, yeah, I want that. Give that to me. And not coincidentally, shortly after that, Samu left the company. And sorry about that. I gotta watch my movements here. So
he ate bad fruit.
Yeah, that's right. That's why
he got a bad taste in his mouth from something. It may or may not been a heartbreak kid.
So that tag title reign is doomed to not last because Vince is going to try to make Kevin Nash Hulk Hogan. It starts at the Survivor Series 1994, where I forget the whole team, but Shawn and Diesel are on the same team against Razor Ramon and a bunch of guys, and
by
literally
great tag team name. Two cool
dudes. Two dudes with attitudes.
Two dudes with attitude. Yeah.
The dudes with attitudes thing was stolen. Sting had it in WCW years before this. Sting had the dudes with attitudes before that. I believe their name in the Survivor Series was the Teamsters. I think because of the whole Diesel thing. I think they were called the Teamsters. Diesel just runs through the entire babyface team besides Razor Ramon, but Shawn Michaels, and he had done this before, accidentally super kicked him. And Diesel just has had enough, and he chases Shawn to the back, and the rest of the team follows him to the back, so they all get counted out, and Razor Ramon wins. And it's only about 2 or 3 nights later at Madison Square Garden that the new WWF champion Bob Backlund gets kicked in the stomach, jackknifed, and pinned in about 20 seconds, and Diesel's on his way. Shawn is doing a lot of commentary at this point. He's in and out of stuff, but he's really about to take that next step because in 1995, he becomes the first guy to win the Royal Rumble at number 1. Has a big match with Diesel at WrestleMania.
Wait, he's not the first guy to do it, right?
From number 1, he is. Yes.
Is he? I thought Hogan did it from 1 first.
No, Hogan's not going to wrestle that longer.
That's you're right. Yeah, Shawn is. So this is
Ric Flair won it from 3. Ric Flair was number 3.
Yeah, Shawn. So this is one of many things. Not trying to toot horns here, but this is one of many things. Shawn's going to have that checkbox first to do thing, and this is one of the big ones. He's the first one to win the Royal Rumble from the number 1 spot.
And it was BS because he paid off the sound guy. They hit Bulldog's music. They should have hit Bulldog's music. He turned his back.
Listen, and honestly, it was the first person in a Rumble to actually do the whole both feet didn't touch bit either, if I'm not mistaken. Because I remember watching
that may
as a
have
kid,
happened before. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
but no, that was. I think you might be right there.
I just remember watching as a kid, and Bulldog's in that bottom left corner, and he's celebrating, and Shawn just gets in and shoves him over to the top, and I'm just like, Shawn just got eliminated, and then he comes in, I'm like, what's he doing? Oh, he's gonna beat him up after, and they're like, and your winner, the Heartbreak Kid. I'm like, what? Like, I just remember like, because everyone hated that I love Shawn. It pissed everyone off.
That was like the worst Royal Rumble ever too. Like,
it was great for me. It was great for me. The whole time, like, he's still there. He's still there. He's still there.
And it's not because Shawn won or anything. It's not because Shawn won. It's because it was the first time they did 1 minute between people, and their roster was so thin at that point.
Yeah,
it was like Luger, Shawn, Bulldog. They were like the only guys you could buy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Rhea Ripley was the first woman to do it from. Yep.
And it has happened since then. One of the guys we don't talk about anymore, Chris Benoit, did it. I believe Edge did it in the Pandemic Rumble. So it has happened before, but Shawn was the first. Unfortunately, it's not going to turn into the world title. Diesel's going to win at WrestleMania 11. Shawn's going to get turned babyface the next night when Sid turns on him. And this is where we get that two dudes with attitudes run. He gets the Intercontinental title back from Jeff Jarrett, and a really good match at the Second in Your House. We talked a little bit about that when we redid King of the Ring 1995. He's going to have a ladder match rematch with Razor Ramon at SummerSlam. It's not as good as the first one, but it's still incredibly good at SummerSlam 95. It really saves that show from being a stinker. And then Shawn is really getting some momentum behind him. Diesel is not setting the world on fire, but Shawn is as hot as anybody in the company right now. And it wasn't too long
around this time is when the Click is now
known.
They have a name, they have a catchphrase, they have a little hand gesture.
They have a name, they are starting to really have an influence on a lot of the decisions. They really kind of were instrumental in Bam Bam Bigelow's push being nullified. They were really instrumental in a lot of guys being pushed out that were seen as a little too old, like the King Kong Bundys of the world and the guys like that. And they were really kind of taking the wheel of that new generation, because they were the Click, but there were a few Clicks. Like Bret kind of kept to himself, but you had those guys, you had Undertaker's guys that they would call them like the Bone Street Crew. It was him, Yokozuna, the Godwins, or at this point he's Kama. A lot of those guys were really
and the Click parted with the Bone Street Crew a lot as well. There's photos of them all on the bus. Yeah,
but it was more about politics and more about your position on the card and looking out for
there's a lot of cliques backstage. Just the one Click is the one everyone kind of blames for everything, but I'm sure other cliques politicked and got other people their own spots too.
And one of the guys that really kind of gets has been more outspoken than most about the emphasis the Click had at this time in 1995 is Shane Douglas. Shane Douglas comes into the WWF.
Not
all right.
He comes in any day of the week. Every time I seen Shane Douglas, Dean Douglas, whatever you want to call him, he's with Francine, and I want to go talk to Francine so bad, but the Shawn Michaels in me will not go over. No, I respect Shane Douglas.
Shane Douglas is awesome. Shane Douglas
he's really good.
Yeah. But it was the wrong place, wrong time, and they gave him an awful character because he was so revolutionary as the franchise, Shane Douglas, he was the Shawn Michaels of ECW. He was like a mixture of Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair. And because in his past he had been a school teacher and they found that out about him, he is now Dean Douglas. Oh, our audience is all kids and they're going to hate teachers, so he'll be the annoying teacher. And it was just a bad fit. It was not like the franchise was such a perfect character, and now you're going to turn him into this. And what really kind of sunk him was they put him with the 1-2-3 kid, and they always said that the 1-2-3 kid, Sean Waltman, whoever we're going to call him, at this point he's a 1-2-3 kid. He was the litmus test, and he is legitimately as gifted a wrestler as there ever has been in the WWE or the WWF. And they said if you couldn't work with him, you were done. Like,
and his work rate in the gym too is unbelievable. They said too, like he was an animal. He was so small, but like not a lot of people can outwork out. Like they couldn't work out or do anything to his level because he was so insanely talented.
And so when Kid gave them the thumbs down after working with Dean Douglas, the clique was like, "No, this guy's no good." And they really didn't do a whole lot to make his life in WWF very, very good. And he was kind of thrown right into a feud with Razor Ramon as well. And at In Your House 4, which was, I believe, the one in Canada, it's all set up that he's going to challenge Shawn Michaels for that Intercontinental title. And he's probably going to win. I don't know if that's a definite. He's probably going to win because Shawn's about to be elevated again. And Dean Douglas does feel like a transitional champion here to get the belt from Shawn the Razor. But before that can happen, Shawn Michaels and the British Bulldog and the 1-2-3 Kid are all gonna stop at a bar in Syracuse, and Shawn Michaels is gonna be a little over the limit, over the line, and he is going to turn his attention to one of the women in the bar, and the woman's ex-boyfriend, who was also a Marine, did not take kindly to this and was basically trying to keep him away. And Shawn, he'd be the first to admit he could have an attitude at this point. He could be a little mouthy. He could be a little cocky. That he like all great characters, that Heartbreak Kid is just the real guy turned up to 10, especially at that time. So there's a lot of friction, and Shawn is going to go back into the car and kind of sleep it off a little bit. And Bulldog and the 1-2-3 Kid are going to go back to the car too. And reports vary on how many people were involved with this. It may have just been that one guy. If you believe the WWF story, it's like an entire battalion of United States Marines.
It was 645 Marines. Yeah.
But whomever it was, they wind up pulling Shawn out of the car.
Real quick too, being a professional wrestler at this time isn't all like, oh, you walk into a bar and everyone's going to respect you because you're a pro wrestler. Just as many people. It's the exact opposite. Oh, you guys are fake fighters, and what you guys do is fake. And a lot of pro wrestlers have to fight for that moniker. Yeah. Now, also at this point in time in wrestling and some of those Zero Territory days, if you got into a bar fight with a civilian and lost,
where Shawn started, Bill Watts, if you lost a fight, you were done. You could have been the world champion. If you lose a fight and people find out, you're out. You're over. You're never coming back.
Yep. So there's a little bit of a stink of that on too. So probably why they embellished the story a little bit, because like instead of Shawn getting beat up by one guy and it was a whole bunch of guys. You know what I mean? Like, But that was the kind of thing. Like Shawn came in, turned heads, and a bunch of pro wrestlers are here. And also that night, Paul Triple H is not with him.
Yep.
Diesel's not with him. Scott Hall's not with him, and the people who are with him are not his people. You know, I mean, it wasn't, the deck was not, Shawn shot his mouth off and didn't have his bodyguards with him.
Yeah. Well, he had one of them, but they said like when because 1-2-3 Kid is a tough guy. Like he's a smaller guy, but he could hold his own. Not that Shawn wasn't athletic or Shawn wasn't like, he just wasn't a fighter. He they talk about this later with the Montreal stuff. Like he wasn't mean enough to be that guy. He wasn't mean enough. So Shawn, what happens here is Shawn is going to wind up getting a few black eyes. His earrings got ripped out. Like it was rough.
Pretty nasty concussion.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe. That might have been embellished a little bit too because they didn't want to lose with Dean Douglas. So,
yeah, but I'm saying if you're getting punched in the head like that, a couple times, it's likely.
Yeah, more than likely. So
and I mean, realistically too, that was probably the only time he was actually probably tested for concussion, and God knows how many you're probably getting in pro wrestling at that time.
100%, 100%. So Shawn's gonna be here in Vancouver for this In Your House in Britain, and he is just gonna hand that Intercontinental title over to Dean Douglas. There's another one. There's another one not lost in the ring. So what happens?
I don't put this one on him though.
Okay, no, that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Yeah, that one. I don't think Shawn's like, you know what, I'm gonna go get jumped at a bar, so I don't have to get the Dean Douglas.
That's true, but I think he would have found a way to not lose it to Dean Douglas anyway. I think he would have found a way. But anyway,
or he goes and wrestles Dean Douglas and realizes that this dude's actually really fucking good, and maybe gives him the nod of approval, and doesn't just take his word from Shawn Waltman.
Maybe. We'll never know. We'll never know. What happens here?
It would have been a fun match to watch, though. It would have been a fun match to watch.
For sure. What happens instead is we get the shortest Intercontinental title reign in history. Dean Douglas is the Intercontinental champion for about 14 minutes because he immediately loses that title to Razor Ramon. And he is out of the company by next January. He's back in ECW as the franchise.
But, I mean, if one of those weird things where you turn around and say, well, these guys are villains for doing that, and what they did was shitty, 100% agreed.
Well, we haven't gotten to the sandwiches or the salads yet, but yeah.
But if that doesn't happen, I mean, does ECW launch the way it does? Like, he goes, takes the title, dumps it, becomes Extreme Championship wrestler.
That was before this.
I know, but I'm saying, like, now him coming back, and like Shane Douglas was that big, like, F the system type guy too, and
he was a better fit for ECW at the time, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. So Shawn is about to get the rocket strapped to him, and he's gonna wind up in a doing a really, really controversial angle, because a lot of people bought this. After the Survivor Series, he's gonna wrestle Owen Hart, and he's gonna collapse in the ring, and they're gonna say it's the after effect of that beating in Syracuse. And we get that whole "Tell Me a Lie" video, and is he gonna retire? Is he in? Is he out? He comes back for good at the Royal Rumble, wins the Royal Rumble, and now we're gonna start.
He sells that insecurity kick where he's just like,
oh, it was perfect.
Yo, got me as a kid. I was like,
it was so authentic. It was so believable. They did a great job with it.
So, I need you to understand something though, BP. As a sports fan, I've never had a guy or a team or anything. Like, I watched Washington win the Super Bowl, but I was so young, I didn't know what was happening. I wasn't even considered a Washington fan at the time. I didn't know what I was watching. You know what I mean? It was 91. I was born in 86. I didn't care. You know what I mean? Like, so Shawn's that first guy that I'm like, oh, and then injured, and then and I'm like, oh yeah, and then this whole thing has been like my Washington 37 quarterbacks. Like, I've never had consistency, and I was like, this guy just fucking fainted. He's done.
I get it.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
so you stuck with him even after he went babyface.
Yeah. Oh, I was as soon as I seen Shawn Michaels, I was in on. There was never a moment where I was not a Shawn Michaels fan.
Okay, all right, I get it. So they do a great job with that. Shawn does come back at the Royal Rumble, wins it. Now we're going to go to WrestleMania 12.
What does he come in at the Rumble? Do you remember?
No, it was in the 20s probably. And he winds up coming down to him and Diesel. He eliminates Diesel. He got thrown out, which is weird because they always play with the rules here. Michaels actually got thrown out of that Rumble. That Rumble was also Vader's debut in the WWE. And Shawn eliminates Vader. And Vader comes back in and beats a bunch of people out and throws Shawn out, but they said it didn't count because Vader was out of the match. Where most of the time that would count.
It would count 100%.
Yeah, but for some reason they said that didn't count in this one.
Yeah, when Hogan distracts what's his name and gets him eliminated, nobody cared.
They booed the hell out of Hogan when he got Sid eliminated. They booed the hell out of him. But I guess they said because Vader wasn't in the match, it was already out of the match. It was an illegal elimination, which they come back to again. Literally the next year with Steve Austin when he wins it after he got thrown out, but the refs didn't see it.
I love that moment.
This is going to come down to WrestleMania 12, and this is where some of the friction starts. Because the whole idea here is Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, and it seems like most people agree that the idea was that Shawn's going to win this one. Bret's going to put him over clean as a sheet. We're going to run it back in a year, and Bret's going to get it back at WrestleMania 13. So, and they even wanted to, and this is where a lot of these seeds that germinate a year and a half later are starting to really form. They even make it seem like Bret's a little unhappy after the match, and they were kind of, and this is never a good idea, they were kind of working the boys a little bit, like acting like they had a little more friction, like acting like they didn't really like one another. And that Bret was a little resentful of Shawn getting this moment because they wanted to plant those seeds for next year. So Shawn is now the champion. Shawn has a great match with Diesel the next month at In Your House, Good Friends, Better Enemies. It's a match where Diesel literally rips off Mad Dog Vachon's prosthetic leg and tries to hit Shawn with it. It's a really fun match. But Shawn had a lot of the same issues that the Diesel had, is that his opponents, they tried with Vader, but they just didn't really click. They want to do a longer program with Shawn and Vader. Shawn just didn't like working with him. There's an infamous spot in their SummerSlam match where Shawn's about to come off the top, and I guess he didn't like where Vader was positioned, so he just jumps off the top, lands on his feet, kicks Vader, and yells at him. And that's just basically it. Like,
the
I think
original stupid moment.
Yeah, one of the original.
Where, if you don't know what we're talking about, Randy Orton didn't like Kofi's positioning in a match and literally yelled "stupid." Called him stupid loud enough that every camera in the building heard it.
And now look at another guy that has grown so tremendously. Had a little bit of a dust up with Javon Evans at NXT on Tuesday, and
possibly pooped in a bag.
Yeah, no, they both.
There's rumors of Randy doing things to people's gear.
well, Shawn did it to people's food.
Yeah,
the Click did it to people's food. They I don't know which member of the Click did it, but they left a little surprise in Mark Henry's salad once, and they did the same thing to Sonny's sandwich. So they would do it to people's food.
I would be honest. I would put all my money on Waltman, all of it.
It's. I can tell you it probably wasn't Triple H. I can tell you it probably wasn't Triple H. he was the adult in the room even then. He wasn't a partier. He was like their DD, but he was also like sitting at the learning tree.
Essentially, realistically, Kevin Nash said is the best, and Scott Hall said it best. He goes, "We were just getting in our rental car at the airport, and we were hungover as shit getting off the plane. And there's Paul Levesque standing there." Looking great. Guy could be $1 million superstar. Understood the business. We liked him as a person, but we liked the fact even more that he was completely clean and sober. He was a great. And they were like, "You want to hang out with us and be our driver?" And he's like, "Yeah, I need friends." And that's what made Triple H in the Click, because he was responsible.
And the rest is history. So at some point the original plan was supposed to be for Vader to beat Shawn for the title. They always
Didn't Shawn say he stunk too. He said he smelled.
Yeah, Vader had a bad habit of not washing his gear. There's an old story in WCW that Harley Race had to chase Vader into the shower with a taser. So Vader and
Shawn's
Vader
onto something.
Vader also had a rap in WWF for being too stiff. That's why they put him with Ken Shamrock after a while, to kind of be like, "Look, slow down, or we're gonna put you with this guy every night." Yeah. And they beat the hell out of each other in their match. So Shawn didn't really like working with him, and Vader had a shoulder injury as well. So they wind up kind of changing course, and Sid winds up beating Shawn for the title at the Survivor Series. And you can tell that Vader was the plan, though, because this is when they would have those subtitles for In Your House. Like, this is around the time of In Your House Mind Games, where Shawn has that great match with Mankind, that amazing match with Mankind.
Yeah. And doesn't the curtain call happen before this, though?
Yeah, the curtain call happened shortly after WrestleMania 12. After Shawn beat Diesel in a cage. I saw the same matches. They didn't do the curtain call in Philly, but they had the same matches. Toward the middle end of the card, Triple H Hunter Hearst Helmsley beats Razor clean, and then Shawn beats Diesel in a cage. And those are two of the big matches, because Nash and Hall are leaving. And
is Shawn still there? Is he?
Yeah, Shawn's a champion. Shawn's a champ.
1, 2, 3 Kid. Pop.
He was there. He was there at this point. He was a little lower on the card, though. At this point, he was a heel. Yeah, he had turned heel by early '96. I think he's with DiBiase. I think he's with DiBiase at that point, and he's teaming with Sid a lot.
Yeah.
So, the curtain call happens where they all come out and they all celebrate together. And maybe Kid was hurt, because I don't think he was part of the curtain call.
He wasn't.
But Triple H was the one that takes all the heat for it. Triple H took all the heat for it. And
it's funny because they said Shawn was supposed to win that King of the Ring.
No, Triple H was supposed to win that. Shawn was a champ at this point. When the curtain call happens in 1996, Shawn is a champion.
Shawn was supposed to win a King of the Ring, but it never happened.
I'm not sure when they changed it.
And then Triple H is supposed to win King of the Ring, and then it got changed too.
I'm gonna bet. Yeah, I don't know when Shawn would have been. Maybe 94, but then they wound up going with Owen.
Yeah,
because they're gonna do Brett and Owen. But 96, it was gonna be Triple H, and this is where that happenstance really works. And this is where a third person gets threaded in, Steve Austin. The happenstance here is Triple H is supposed to win that King of the Ring, and he does win it the next year, but he's supposed to win it in '96. And because of the curtain call, they can't punish Shawn because Shawn has Vince's ear and he's the champion. They can't punish Hall and Nash because they're leaving. So Triple H is gonna have to eat the shit for everybody.
Yeah,
and
the big things are the big thing with the curtain call here is once again we're not trying to insult your intelligence, but we are telling this from a standpoint of what you could be in any moment of professional wrestling fandom at this point, but the click is definitely known by the smart fans and by the smart marks and the insiders and everything like that, and everything that we're saying here is we're kind of toting the line between what you're seeing on TV and then kind of what the smart mark fans are saying when we're telling these stories, because not everything we're saying has been portrayed on screen as well. You know what I mean? We're kind of giving you some insider as we're going, but this is where they people knew what the finger gestures were because they would come out and they'd hit the camera and they would do that. And when they all get in the ring at the same time and they break that kayfabe and they all too sweet each other and they're hugging and that this gesture becomes even bigger now because now Scott and Kevin go to the other company and they're coming out and the NWO turned into this essentially the NWO was the Click, but just take out Hogan and take out Shawn and put in Hogan. Like that was the pivotal of like the Click. Personified on television was the NWO, but it also sent a point of it kind of was the first time really they peeked behind the curtain of between pro wrestling and kayfabe, and the old school guys hated it, but they were ahead of the curve on what the fans grabbing another section of fans in professional wrestling. And this is where it really sparked that like, oh, I can know the insider stuff too as well. Like it really launched that whole and it spawned a whole next generation of talent of, you know, we can kind of play with this a little bit and give backstage, but maybe give them backstage stuff where they think they know things, but turn it on their head. Because I still think to this day, I think kayfabe is still alive and well. And I still think, just in my opinion, I think there's situations where stuff happens and they know what's best for business. And I think they use that to make more money for themselves. I'm not saying that AEW, WWE are best friends. I don't think they are at all.
They're not.
I think there is some kayfabe elements with the way CM Punk left AEW and went to WWE. I just really feel that I think CM Punk, I think he's very good at it where he'll let you think you know what you know and make money off of it, you know, because he doesn't talk about it. Like I think there is elements where they use moments like this to draw more money later, and they use it for storyline and they use it for those moments. And I think the curtain call is a huge drop in the bucket where they go, it was not good for business, but we spawned something here. And that's they kind of they use that to launch the NWO because Scott and Kevin coming in was kind of like, well, what is real and what's not real anymore? It shocked everything.
That's something completely different. That whole thing that there were lawsuits over that. So that's not something that WWF's going to want to do because the NWO literally almost put them out of business. The NWO put them on death's door. NWO put them deeper in the hole than they ever were.
Yeah,
and the Hall and Nash are the catalysts for WCW dominating them for a year and a half and it not being close. And it's like WWF is not the WCW.
Do you think if WWF doesn't, if they no sell the curtain call and just let it happen and they don't make a big deal out of it and it doesn't become the dirt sheets of saying this cost Triple H and this pissed off Vince and this did that, and then they go on WCW and do what they did, do you think that you just put a log on their fire to stoke them to be like, haha, we got you?
I don't think one has to do with the other. I don't think WWF has any interest at all in helping WCW at this point. They're literally
no, I don't think they intentionally tried to help them, but I think they looked at what the situation was and like, we have something here.
I think you're also overestimating how many people in 1996 knew about the curtain call. You had to be pretty dialed in. I mean, yes, the internet was around a little bit at this point. I knew about it because by 1996 I had the Pro Wrestling Torch. I'm a dirt sheet kid already. I was already getting dirt sheets by 1996. They leaned into it later with DX. So they did lean into it later, but at that point, Vince Russo's in there, and people are doing a lot of worked shoots, and worked shoots are. It might seem fun. It might see, and especially if you're behind the scenes, you want to think in that inside baseball way. Worked shoots are almost never a good idea. It's never a good idea to work the boys. It's never a good idea to do any of this stuff. It really isn't. And it was more. They think a lot of the old school guys are mad because they exposed the business in Madison Square Garden. They exposed the business, so that's where a lot of that heat came from.
Yeah,
but if it doesn't happen, and Triple H does win King of the Ring, then the guy who does
we don't get Austin 316
exactly, because Steve Austin's the guy who gets it instead, and he beats Jake Roberts, and then we get the infamous line, Austin 316 says, "I just whipped your ass." And that doesn't happen without the curtain call.
Yeah.
But what is also happening here is Shawn Michaels is the champion, and he's still Shawn Michaels. He's still insanely talented, but WCW just has all the momentum. This NWO thing, because early on, they really made it seem, until they got sued and they had to have them come on television and say, "No, we don't work for the World Wrestling Federation." They really made it seem like Vince was sending some guys down to take over WCW, which at this point, like, an NWO doesn't work as well now because people would know it's an angle. What made it work in those few moments is if you weren't reading the Observer or the Torch, you weren't on the early version of the internet, there's a good chance you bought that, holy shit, Razor Ramon and Diesel are showing up and they're going to mess with WCW. Like, that worked because of kayfabe.
And he 100% was Scott Hall, but he was playing Razor Ramon.
Yeah, he was being Razor Ramon, yeah. He never did. Well, he did do the toothpick stuff as a diamond stud too. So
yeah,
but yeah, he was being Razor Ramon. Nash was being Diesel, and it was so authentic and so real that WWF literally sued, and they had to say,
was Just Incredible part of the clique? I don't recall that.
He was like friendly with those guys. I don't know if they have I don't think they have like membership cards or anything like that.
He's clique adjacent.
Yeah. So officially the clique is Michaels, Nash, Hall, 1, 2, 3 Kid, and Triple
H. The goons. There's the goons and there's goons adjacent. Yeah.
But they were friendly with certain guys. They were friendly with Just Incredible. They were friendly with Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett was pretty cool with those guys. But Just Incredible is like one of those guys who was always kind of clique adjacent is a perfect example.
Probably fit in really well with their partying as well.
So by the time that we're at 96 is coming to an end and WWF is really on the ropes, they bring Bret Hart back with this huge 20-year contract, and Shawn's not happy about that because Shawn had signed a new deal at the beginning of 96, and Vince was like, "You're going to be our highest paid guy. Here's what Undertaker's making. You're going to get paid the same." I think it was something like $700,000 at that point a year, where Nash and Hall got more than that for less dates guaranteed in WCW. And now Bret's coming in, and Bret was waving this offer from WCW of $2.8 million a year. And Vince is like, "I can't pay you that much per year, but I can pay you for 20 years and I can pay you $1.5 million a year." And Shawn is like, "Well, he's coming in and he's going to make twice as much as I do. I don't like that."
Yeah. So Shawn's also, once again, that guy who fought and clawed his way up, finally got to the top, is doing everything he thinks is right. He's making great storylines. He feels he's on his stride, and he's still not being recognized as one of the top guys. And he's putting his work in. He's putting his body in the line. He's tearing his back up. His best friends just left him. Now the one thing that made him comfortable, because now instead of everyone kind of shoveling shit on him, he's kind of the kid that was bullied that became the bully then. Like, he hit puberty in school and became the really good athlete, and then start giving back to everybody what they did to him.
Right.
I'm not saying it's what's right or wrong, but I can justify it or see why he did what he did. But now he lost his muscles. They're gone. They're left. Now his clique is kind of diminished. He's a man he's a man alone.
Oh, he still has a lot of power though. He still has Vince's ear more than anybody.
Yeah, he has Vince's ear, but now he's not as it's him and pretty much him and Triple H at this time.
Yeah,
and
because
he has to deal
over 6.
Yeah, and he has to deal with Bret and his entire family there, Taker and his whole and he's the third guy in the roster again, and he's like, why am I not being treated the same as them? And maybe why is WCW not offering me these big deals? Like, he's kind of probably in his own head. And obviously, drugs and alcohol aren't helping Shawn at this point either.
That's true too. And unfortunately, he did, like a lot of guys at that time, he did have issues with pain medication and
because
a lot of those guys
being destroyed.
Yeah, and because of like how he put his body in the line every night. The other thing that's happening here too is that it's probably in his head because of how proud he is. It's like, I finally made it. I'm finally the guy. I'm the champion. The guy carrying the company, and we are getting the ever-loving shit kicked out of us every week by WCW.
Yep.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown, and the champion. If you're the champion and business is down, you feel it like that.
And he took it personal.
Yeah. And there's nothing he could have done.
He's getting beat by his best friends who are essentially recreating their actual their storyline in another company, and it's the best thing in wrestling. And Hogan,
who is the guy
Shawn's like, you mother, he's like, you're me right now, you're fucking me. But you're Hogan.
So all this is
Shawn will get him back eventually.
Kind of. all this is coming to a head at the 1997 Royal Rumble, which is in his hometown, San Antonio. They packed the Alamo Dome. They were doing everything they could, like $5 tickets. They packed that place, and Shawn beat Sid.
Pepsi cans. You bring a Pepsi can, you get a ticket for.
So Shawn beat Sid to reclaim the WWF title, and for all it seems, it's probably going to be, everybody seems to think, just like we drew it up a year ago, it's Shawn's turn to drop the title back to Brett. But it seems like Shawn is going to Vince's ear, like, I don't know if I want to do that. I'm not really happy with Brett right now. Brett's making more money than me. Now he's going to take my title. He's going to take my spot. So the way this is presented to Brett is that Vince comes to him and he says that him beating Shawn at WrestleMania is too predictable. So we're going to have Sid win the title back, and Sid's going to beat Undertaker for the title at WrestleMania. You're going to still wrestle Shawn. I think what he said, the thing Vince floated to Brett, according to Brett in his book, is that you'll do a ladder match with Shawn, and it's going to be hair versus hair, and you'll get to shave Shawn's head or something. He's like, I don't want to do that. I want to be the champion. I want to beat. I want my win back. Essentially, I want. I did the favor for Shawn last year. It's Shawn's turn now.
He did get Shawn's hair though.
Yeah. Well, I think Mother Nature took care of that.
No, Brett helped early on.
Oh, yes, he did. Yes, he did. You're right. You're exactly right. That's happening in a few months here. I forgot about that. So what winds up happening is the idea was that they're doing this special Thursday episode of Raw because Raw is preempted for the dog show on USA. And Shawn is the damn dog show.
Yeah, Shawn fucking pro wrestling took a backseat the dog show.
So Shawn is gonna lose the title to Sid, and Shawn had a knee injury at this point, but chances, people say it wasn't as bad as he made it out to be. Like, oh, this could be a career-ending injury. I'm my knee is destroyed. I may never wrestle again. They sent him to Dr. James Andrews, said, you'll be fine in like 4 to 6 weeks. So their idea initially was,
Doc, come on.
their initial idea was Sid was going to beat him in like 5 minutes. And then Shawn could take some time off to rehab. But Shawn does have this thing in his head, and this is why he retired fairly early when he still had something in the tank. He never wanted to wrestle unless he could be Shawn Michaels. He never wanted to shortchange anybody on the show. Just forget that other match he did at the very, very end. And that wasn't even really his fault. He was the best guy in that match.
I thought he looked great in that match. I was still like...
everybody else was the problem in that match. Everybody else was the problem.
I was like... I seen that Saudi show, and I was like, all right. He did his thing for Taker. Taker went on to do other things. Yep. Just give me Seth or AJ. Just do it. And the rumor was it was floated, and he wouldn't pull the trigger.
I have the one I really wanted, but we'll get to that here, and I'll try to speed this up because I know we're going very long.
Yeah, so a lot of this next section we're going to probably not skim over, but we talked about it in nauseum.
Yeah. Shawn gets there and he's like, no, I'm just going to drop the title. I don't want to do a half-ass match. I'm going to relinquish the title. There's another. Didn't lose the title in the ring. Now it's the world title. So Shawn gets in. This is the infamous I lost my smile speech. And apparently nobody knew he was going to do that. They thought he was just going to say, I have this really devastating injury. I can't wrestle. But he did this whole thing about losing his smile. Apparently in the back, Undertaker is all pissed off. He's like, that little fucker just doesn't want to drop the belt. So Undertaker gets one correct there. And so eventually they had this final four, which was supposed to be like the number one contender match for the title shot.
Can I pose something to you real quick here?
Sure.
From now I'm only talking from a standpoint of like playing sports my whole life and being competitive and having that competitive nature. If you don't think you compete on a physical level to 100%, and that means something to you as your career, and you also know in an industry where if you do take time off, or if you take time off and don't look good on your way out, it can affect a lot for you. So you have to kind of play a business standpoint to protect yourself, but also not go out there and shit the bed, because if you don't think you can give it 100%, you can. Like, he goes out and says he has a bad knee, and he goes out and just toughs it out and tries to have a match, and it's fucking terrible. That could be the end of him forever in this, because this industry is unforgiving.
He could have done a kick power bomb 1, 2, 3. The little fucker didn't want to drop the belt. Undertaker was exactly right.
I don't know. I think I'm not defending him, but I just think in that era of wrestling, if you don't do, and like I said, and I also think he knew he made a lot of enemies, and if he feeds them even a slight of I'm not that guy anymore, and they get in Vince's ear like he's not the Shawn Michaels you think he is anymore, that could ruin everything for him. So he has a lot to kind of protect here.
Okay, all right, sure. I think I hear what you're saying, but I think it was more like, and maybe he really didn't feel like he wanted to go, but. This was also, and I'm not saying this was right. This was the era of if you can do it, you're gonna do it. You work hurt. Not that Shawn didn't do that a year later. Shawn definitely did that a year later. So it's not like Shawn that was out of the question for Shawn. But I think at this point, he definitely didn't want to drop the belt to Brett, and he probably didn't want to drop the belt to Sid either. And he when he says that, I lost my smile, it's like saying I'm in a bad spot mentally. Like I don't, and you know, mental health's a real thing. Like, and this is a guy who was dealing with addiction issues, and dealing
drug issue.
Yeah. So it's not like
he's not getting kicked out of the locker room yet for coming stoned. Yeah,
no,
that's coming soon.
That was later when he was out of the ring for a while
with Austin, right?
Yeah.
After
Oh no, that was a bit later. So what happens here is he just kind of relinquishes the title. Brett wins it, but loses it to Sid the next night, and we get it all winds up working out because we get that amazing Brett Austin match. It's the great double turn, and Shawn is in and out here, and Brett's hurt a lot too here. So they're kind of ships passing in the night. Like Brett's big program was with Austin in 1997, but Shawn Michaels drops in, and they hate each other too, and that resentment is really taking form backstage as well at this point. And it comes to a head of the point where Shawn is back, and Shawn feels like he's okay. But Brett is hurt now. Brett has a knee injury. And they're going to do a match at King of the Ring where it's going to be Brett versus Shawn. And I'm assuming Brett's going to win this one because the whole stipulation is if Brett loses, he can't wrestle in the United States anymore. And I don't think they're going to do that. So, but the person that actually backs out of this match is Brett. So what happens here is they have a promo leading up
Coward.
to
this. What a puss. No,
they have Brett had a legit knee injury, but he's going to work through it for that match. He really did need to have knee surgery, but he's going to put it off. So they have an issue where they're doing a promo where Brett's in a wheelchair, and the whole promo is just he's going to lay in the Shawn Michaels for 5-10 minutes, and at the end of the promo, Shawn's just going to super kick him back into his chair. And that's awesome. That's gonna be the button on it. It would have been awesome if Brett didn't hit his cue. If Brett would have found his cue, like Brett kept going long enough. They didn't have those big overruns back then. Brett went long enough that the super kick happened after Raw was off the air.
And Shawn was like, "You did that shit on purpose, mother." Yeah.
And Brett was adamant that, and there were people all around like trying to give Brett cues to wrap it up. Brett swore up and down that there was an accident. Shawn swore up and down that he did it on purpose. And I know how bad wrestlers are with time cues. I can definitely believe that Brett went over his time.
The best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be, just not in promos.
Oh no, that's true. That's true. Neither Shawn for that matter. Austin had both of them beat.
Yeah.
At this point. So Shawn's going to give him a little receipt for this because the next promo they have is the infamous one where Shawn talks about Brett having sunny days. And it's funny because we talked about it last week. Shawn was the one that was having an affair with
a lot of sunny days. Yeah, a lot of sunny days.
apparently Brett and Sonny did spend a lot of time together. Like, they didn't have a women's locker room, and Brett was kind of a loner himself. So, like, they wouldn't dress together, but like Brett would just hang out with Sonny a lot in a different locker room and not with the rest of the boys.
Sonny used to babysit his kids and stuff too.
Yeah. So after this happens, Brett's got heat with his wife now. Like, hey, what the hell? What's this all about? So Brett's in this whole thing where, okay, I got to do something about this. This guy is, this is not wrestling anymore. This guy is messing with my marriage. This is personal now. So even though Brett, first of all, Brett's like, we're not doing the match of King of the Ring. I'm going to have the knee surgery. The match is off. Shawn ends up wrestling Steve Austin at that show, even though they're a tag team. They were tag team champions for a minute.
Yep.
And so Brett goes backstage and they have words. Brett takes a swing and misses. Brett takes a second swing, doesn't miss. Grabs Shawn by the hair, takes a chunk of his hair out, gets him on the ground. One-legged Bret Hart got the better of Shawn in this fight, and everybody's pulling them apart. And I've heard that both Jerry Lawler and Jim Cornette, I've heard both sides of the story, that both of them got a piece of Michael's hair that Brett ripped out. But these are the tensions coming to a head, and Brett is now, or Shawn is now saying this is an unsafe working environment. I want to sue to get out of my contract. I want to go to WCW. I'm done with this place. And cooler heads do prevail, and everything kind of settles down. And Shawn starts to go heel too, with the idea being, if we're both heels, then, well, no, like one of the things that I have this completely wrong. One of the ideas that sold Brett on turning heel was Shawn and I won't be in such direct competition with one another if we're not both jockeying to be this top babyface. So if I turn heel and Shawn's a babyface, we can be babyface one, heel one. And Brett was probably also like, soon enough, Austin's going to be babyface one anyway. Like, as this is all going on, there is a supernova heating up, and his name is Steve Austin, and that's coming. That's coming no matter what.
Attitude Era is coming, but they have no idea what it is and how it's getting there. But it's essentially, it's cool to be the bad guy.
And that is so important, because all the more risque stuff, all the pushing the envelope stuff, Brett hated it. Brett hated all the sexual content. Brett hated the language. He's like, I can't even let my kids watch the show I'm on anymore. He hated it. And Vince was really leaning into it. Shawn was a big believer in it. Austin was becoming the biggest star in the history of wrestling off of it. So Brett was starting to become very out of place in the WWF. And Vince and they were,
Shawn's thriving too, because now he can get he can get crazier with his promos.
Yep.
He can walk out to the ring in tiny little shorts. He can almost show his dick and balls and asshole on TV, like, and Brett kind of gives him a line here on a promo, and he's like, "You're nothing but a degenerate."
Yeah,
and Shawn goes, "Bing, yes, I'm a degenerate. We're Degeneration X, and
the rest is history.
A new stable is born, and everything that Brett hated, Shawn turned to a million." But you're wrestling in your country, and I'm outside the ring. I'm putting your flag in my nose. I'm sticking it down my pant, like, just being a like, doing his job, but he knows that it's getting under Brett's skin.
And of course, that all culminates with, and go back to last week's if you want to hear all about the Montreal Screwjob.
The Montreal Screwjob and Batman's origin story have been told and exhausted, but and then also during this time, Shawn is going to go to England, and he's going to win that European Championship.
Yeah, so
I'm
about
sure
that. Let's talk about this. Yeah.
The only reason I bring it up is because once he wins this European Championship, Shawn is now, I believe, one of the first, if not the first Grand Slam champion.
Yeah, because at this point, the European title is brand new, and only the British Bulldog has ever had it. And the British Bulldog is the reigning European champion. So this is a UK only pay-per-view. It's called One Night Only. It's the first time they've ever done this. It's a pay-per-view, but only in the UK. And the British Bulldog is a gigantic star in the UK, super babyface, hometown hero, one of the biggest crowds, that literally the biggest, like, by raw ticket sales crowd they ever had. Depending on who you believe, it could be that Wembley Stadium SummerSlam in 1992, where Bulldog wins the Intercontinental title. So the whole idea here is, because it's the UK only, you're not even going to really see this in the United States. Bulldog's going to win clean. That's the plan. into everything. Bulldog's going to win clean. Bulldog's going to win clean. To the point that the British Bulldog goes on all this media in the UK and says, I am dedicating this title defense to my sister. She is battling cancer. This one is for her. After he says this, Shawn's like, you know what? I think I should win this one. I think I want that European title.
I think I want that first Grand Slam.
Yeah.
Now, no, real quick.
Uh-huh.
From a business standpoint, again, everyone wants to call it a business until you treat it like a business. Shawn looks at it and goes, all right, this guy is probably just as big of an addict as I am. He's on steroids. He could be gone any moment. I have a little stroke here to win a title. If I do it, I've already have the first Royal Rumble from one. I have the first Grand Slam, the first title match, ladder match. Fuck it. No one cared about me on my way up. It's mine this time.
Oh yeah,
and I don't like your brother-in-law, so suck my dick.
Bulldog never did the honors for Shawn as he was leaving the company.
Yeah,
he never put over Shawn for his first singles title. Let's save this for
agreed.
Next week. This is
agreed.
More next week.
You're right, but once again, at that point in time, he's a vindictive piece of shit scumbag who's only out for himself.
That is that seems to be the case. Yep. And that's a little before Montreal because Bulldog left. Bulldog left with Brett. Bulldog and Neidhart came back for like a show and then he left. Owen's the only one that stayed. And so the next big thing that's going to happen after the screw job is at the Royal Rumble in 1998. Shawn Michaels is going to wrestle The Undertaker in a casket match for the WWF title. And this is monumental. This is huge because one of the spots in the match is Shawn is coming off the ropes or diving or gets thrown. I forget the exact spot, but he lands on the casket and he lands at just the right angle that he destroys his back.
Recently when Drew McIntyre did the Claymore on the steel steps.
Yes.
What it looked like that.
Yeah.
But Shawn hit it and then he hits and it pogo sticks him off where he falls almost on his face. Where Drew hit and slid, Shawn hit and it went bing and he launched. Oh, it's a rough looking spot.
Yeah, and for a long time it seemed like this was going to be a career-ending injury, so that his back is legitimately destroyed. This is not little fucker doesn't want to drop the title or anything like that. His back is red. Shawn, a few people held the European title and the Intercontinental title at the same time. But Shawn was the only one to have the WWF title and the European title, which, by the way, he lost in a completely like fake match with Triple H. Like he lost it like 2 months later, where Triple H and him it was basically the finger poke of doom before the finger poke of doom, and he lost it in a match to Triple H. It was so important that he won it and made Bulldog look like an idiot to his dying sister. That was super important. So. But hey, karma.
And it also garnered more heel hate for him too when he did it to Bulldog and because the fans hated it. And it made him more of a heel, and it really solidified the D-Generation X and the Hart Foundation do not like each other.
I think we already had that down. I think we already had that down. So again, there's this as this is all going on, this back and forth with Shawn and Brett and all these other people. Steve Austin is just a freight train.
We also have another first coming up too that Shawn does right after this. Shawn's going to be in the first ever Hell in a Cell match.
Well, that was before that. That was before the screw job.
Well, this is after when he wins a European Championship. He wins the European Championship, and then in Your House, he goes on to be in the first Hell in a Cell at Bad Blood, where he's going to be in the first Hell in a Cell against Taker. That's when DX kind of comes out and puts his body on top of him. But the debut of Kane happens there. Yeah, so that's another first for him as well.
And unfortunately, that's the night Brian Pillman, he died the night before, but that's when it was announced that Brian Pillman had passed away, who was also part of the whole Hart group. Yeah. And so that was the month before the Survivor. In fact, Shawn winning that match, it was a #1 contenders match, and that got him the title shot at Survivor Series where the screw job happened. And this was some resentment from Brett, because Brett at this point is, Vince is trying to basically say, Brett, you should probably get out of here. And Shawn is, even though Brett is the champion, Shawn is the main event of the two In Your Houses before that Survivor Series. The main event of the first one, Ground Zero, was Shawn and Undertaker, and it wound up being a double DQ. Bret Hart wrestles the Patriot, Bret Hart and I forget the order of this, but Bret Hart wrestles the Patriot, and it's in the middle of the card for the world title. And then the other one, we're having that Hell in a Cell. Bret is in a tag match. It's Bret Hart and I believe the Bulldog against the Patriot and Vader in a flag match. So Bret, even though he's a champion, is clearly feeling like a second-class citizen, but he's also on his way out the door. Yeah. And by the time we get to the back injury at the Royal Rumble next year, Bret is out of the picture, and Shawn's about to be too, because he's going to have one last match here. He didn't do any more matches because his back was in such bad shape. But they were going to make sure he did that match at WrestleMania 14 against Steve Austin, where it's the big thing. Everybody knows that Mike Tyson is going to be his the outside enforcer. They act like Mike Tyson's in DX. And even though he's injured, even though he's probably going to go away for a while, Shawn, before that match, is making noise like, maybe I should keep the title here and Austin should chase a little bit. And that's when The Undertaker starts taping up his fists. That little fucker's dropping the belt tonight. That little fucker's dropping the belt tonight. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So that is Shawn's last match in the WWF for over 4 years, as losing the title to Steve Austin at WrestleMania. He did have one match at his training school. And
also, I just looked here. He did a guest referee spot in Japan for Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling.
Oh, FMW,
10th anniversary show. H versus Fake Hayabusa, Mr.
All right, so Ganasuke,
and he got himself involved in the match where Ganasuke delivered a low blow on him, and he responded later over the Sweet Chin Music. So he does a guest referee spot in Japan. I never knew that.
Yeah, so the H is the original Hayabusa, and then the fake Hayabusa was obviously the other one.
That's pretty cool.
He had a match. He had a match outside of WWF in between, in this long four-year stint where he's like the commissioner. He's here every now and then. He did a match for like his wrestling school, which he was kind of out of it as a part of the business side of it, and he didn't really do a lot of the training. Rudy Boy Gonzalez did a lot of that, but look at the people that came out of that school: Brian Kendrick, Paul London, Bryan Danielson. Some of the best wrestlers of their generation came out of that school and really had their formative years down there. And they also had a promotion called the Texas Wrestling Alliance, and Shawn was like the figurehead owner on TV. And they do this whole thing where like Shawn winds up getting manipulated out of owning the company. He did have one match in TWA in between his layoff against a guy called Venom. And you're never going to guess who Venom was. Paul Diamond. Yeah, Paul Diamond. This is the last appearance of Paul Diamond in this story. But then we have this whole second act. We spent so much time on the first act, we kind of have to brush over the second act here.
Yeah, I mean, right there, call it a day, Hall of Fame career, right? I mean, that's...
Yep. But he's going to have... Yeah,
he's going to have that second act.
He's going to have that second Hall of Fame career, where he is now going to come back. At first, he was going to be a manager. He didn't feel like he could be Shawn Michaels again. He wanted to do, like, if he was going to have another match, it was going to be a lot of smoke and mirrors. And I believe he was like, his original idea was, I want to do a match with Vince. We can just do a lot of Gaga. You know, Vince isn't going to have like a straight up match anyway, so we'll just do a lot of like Gaga and stuff. And that's something I feel like I can do. And Triple H goes to him because Triple H has obviously become like the top guy in the company. And in Shawn's absence, and Austin's kind of gone by the wayside. The Rock's gone to Hollywood. And Triple H is basically like, well, why don't you just do a match with me? If you feel like you can have a match with Vince, you can have a match with me. So that leads to SummerSlam. They had that no holds barred match. Shawn is wrestling in jeans.
So good.
And they have a great, that match is amazing. I mean, they do bring him back as like,
and when he comes back, if I'm not mistaken, after he comes back and he's inducted in by Kevin Nash into the NWO. He's an NWO. He's officially an NWO member.
he's kind of the leader of the NWO at that point. He's like their general. They kick Booker T out. It's really more about it being the Clique. They're recruiting Triple H. But shortly after this is when Kevin Nash tears his quad. And Scott Hall was having his issues. X-Pac was having some of his issues. So the NWO really fizzled out almost immediately after he got there. Yeah. So they start doing this thing where Shawn is going to be Triple H's manager now. And he's kind of like, I don't really want to be your manager, but let's make the best of it. You're my best friend, but I wish I was still in there. And then Shawn gets attacked and you find out Triple H was the one that did it. And that's Triple H's heel turn because Triple H was a babyface at this point. And they have this amazing match at SummerSlam, and that was supposed to be it. That was Shawn riding off into the sunset because he wasn't sure he was going to be able to do it anymore. He winds up not only doing it, he winds up doing it for another how long? Like 6 years, 7 years almost.
Yeah.
7 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, after this, he goes on to doing another first time matchup, first time doing it, and first time winner of it, the Elimination Chamber, where he goes on to win another world championship, but this time he wins the big gold. He wins the WCW big gold, which is cool. Then from here he goes on. Oh, God, again.
And in another departure, he actually lost it in a match.
Yeah.
He
so
lost it to Triple H a month later. Yeah.
This is a new
all sorts of new things. And this is a new Shawn Michaels. This is a different Shawn Michaels. This is
when he comes back, he's very upfront about his drug addiction. He's very upfront about his alcoholism. He's very upfront that he wasn't a good person. He's very upfront that he's now a man of God. They use that in storylines where Shawn's, even when they redid DX, he would never crotch chop up. Everything he did was just up in the air, and he would never say suck it. He's scared of the line of how he can do. But he made it funny. He made it work. It made it entertaining, even though he wasn't willing to be as DX as he once was.
And they say two things really happened that were the catalyst for this. The first is he had been married before he got divorced around like 94, 95, but he did wind up getting married to the woman who is still his wife.
Nitro Girl.
Yeah, Whisper. Her real name is actually escaping me right now. But yeah, Shawn is still married to her. They've been married for probably 20 years now.
You know what I realized too? We gave no love to Luna. Luna was also one of Shawn's managers for a brief time.
Very brief. WrestleMania 9. Yeah, WrestleMania 9. Yeah. So Shawn gets married and has a family. And there's a situation where he was kind of strung out. He was really struggling with addiction, with painkillers and things like that. And his son was trying to play with him, and he was just out. And his son said something like, "Oh, Daddy's tired," or something like that. And Shawn was like, "I got to make a change." And to his credit, he has, and it is stuck. And this second act was really anything that you could have really had slings and arrows for Shawn at, about being selfish, about not putting people over, about wanting to hog the main event, the spotlight. That 1 month title reign that he had right at that very beginning was the only major title reign he had, other than a few tag title things. He was always in a prominent spot, but he deserved it. He was a top guy. He had another completely Hall of Fame career in this second act from 2002 to 2009. He winds up main eventing WrestleMania 20, has a great program with Jericho in 2019, main events WrestleMania 20, and a great three-way with Triple H and Benoit. At 21, he has an all-time classic with Kurt Angle. At 22, he's in the main event again, even though he wasn't supposed to. Or no, that was 23, excuse me. At 22, he finally does have that wild match with Vince McMahon, and then that leads to the whole Vince and Shane against Shawn Michaels and God, gets his entrance, and it's so bad. And 2005 is also when he has a very brief heel turn. He was heel for like a month to go against Hulk Hogan, and Hulk Hogan out-politicked the politician here, because the whole idea, like Hogan, they both wanted to win that first one at SummerSlam, and Hogan kind of spun it to, well, I'll win the first one, Shawn can win the second one, and we'll figure out what we're going to do for the third. There was no second.
Shawn knew the second one wasn't coming, so he went out and made a fucking cock out of Hulk Hogan.
Comedically oversold. And this is where, and this, we'll save it for next week. So, and he was a babyface immediately right after. He jumped right into a program, I think, with Chris Masters after that.
Also had some really banger matches with he got to work some people like Randy Orton at some point in times in here. He got to work you said Benoit, Kurt Angle. Him and Kurt Angle had a great feud
phenomenally.
With the I'm a Sexy Kurt, which was unbelievable.
Marty Jannetty came back for that angle.
Marty Jannetty came back.
The Rockers actually teamed up on a Raw in, I believe, 2005, I want to say. They teamed up against La Resistance. Now, Michaels, they came out with the music and everything. Michaels was still wearing his Heartbreak Kid gear, but they were the Rockers. The Rockers came back for one night.
Yeah.
I still watch that match back sometimes.
Yeah. He goes on to win tag team championships with John Cena. which is kind of cool. I believe he wins tag team championships at some point in time in this run with Triple H as well.
As DX,
as DX, where they had the SmackDown and Raw tag team champions, where they kind of unified them. So he's getting some cool stuff there. Then he kind of has the career-ending match with Ric Flair that everyone kind of always wanted.
That was Ric Flair's call. I know the kind of overall theme of this episode last week and next week is like that Shawn versus Brett thing. Rick's a Brett guy, or Rick's a Shawn guy. Rick doesn't really like Brett. Brett doesn't really like Rick. But Ric Flair will call Shawn Michaels the greatest to ever do it. Yeah. And
around this time too, WWE does a documentary, because I remember it was on Netflix, and Netflix just became a streaming thing, and it was like the 100 greatest wrestlers voted on by the wrestlers. And I remember watching it. And this is like Shawn's second act, and I wasn't really watching wrestling that much at this point in time, but it come down to like Brett was 3 or 4, Stone Cold was 3 or 4. I think Stone Cold was ahead of Brett though. Number 2 was Undertaker, and I was like, they're not going to do it, are they? And the number 1 guy voted on by the wrestlers was Shawn Michaels, and a lot of people are like, I hated
voted on by the wrestlers,
but like every person in it was like, Undertaker's like, he's to this day, I think he's still in ring the best entertainer. Like, he changed the business, you know.
Nobody will ever doubt the guy's talent. At this point, you want to talk about milestones, it wasn't really because of him. It's about a guy who's running for president. But WrestleMania 23, which it was the biggest pay-per-view buy rate ever for a WrestleMania, was the main event with Shawn Michaels against John Cena, because Triple H tore his quad, and they dropped Shawn Michaels in there. Shawn Michaels had great matches with John Cena. One in England on a Raw that was amazing that Shawn won. Yeah. He retires Flair, and that retirement of Flair leads to the Jericho feud, and he had an amazing feud with Jericho, and that was the catalyst to Jericho having that run as that extremely serious heel world champion. That was one of Jericho's highlights. And then after that, we get in the WrestleMania 25 and 26, and that's when he has that amazing 2-note WrestleMania trilogy with The Undertaker. Undertaker beats him at 25 in one of the greatest matches in WrestleMania history. It's right up there with Bret and Austin. It's right up there with the ladder match. It's right up there with Bret and Owen. It's if it's not your favorite WrestleMania match ever, it's on the short list, that one. Yeah. And then the next year, it's Shawn's turn to hang it up. He wants to go out while he's still got something in the tank, and they do streak versus career at WrestleMania 26, and Shawn Michaels does it. Undertaker does it again and retires Shawn. Yeah. And what was so cool about that is that night was the night Bret Hart came back to WrestleMania and wrestled Vince McMahon. And after the show, there were photos all over WWE.com of Bret and Shawn having a really, really good moment after that match, because at this point they're fully respecting one another again. They've mended all the fences, and Bret was there for that big moment, which was really cool.
Yeah. Then he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and had a few other appearances there. But that, for the most part, that's essentially the second act of Shawn Michaels, where he another second act is a Hall of Fame act as well.
If he just shows up in 2002, that's another Hall of Fame career for sure. It's amazing. Yeah. And the one time I really wanted him to come back. They did the whole thing where when Daniel Bryan, Brian Danielson, whatever you call him, won the title, Orton cashes in the Money in the Bank. They do a Hell in a Cell, and Michaels kind of helps Orton win. He's the referee, and he screws Daniel Bryan. And then they do a thing a few months later where there's all these former champions are in the ring because they're unifying the WWE title and the World Heavyweight title. And it's going to be Cena and Orton, and they have all these former champions, and the crowd's just overwhelmingly chanting for Daniel Bryan, and it just turns into a whole fracas with all these former world champions, and Shawn's in there too, and Daniel Bryan does a charging knee, and I'm like, at this point, like, that whole Yes Movement thing hadn't happened yet, and everybody was like, oh, it's going to probably be Orton and Batista at WrestleMania. I'm like, I would love to see Daniel Bryan get that title back, but if we could get Shawn Michaels and Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania, that is a dream match.
They teased it with that. They teased it with Seth. They teased it with AJ. I think they teased it with Adam Cole for a moment there too, where
but
Shawn and Adam Cole got in each other's. I was like, oh my god,
because of that history of Shawn, Bryan Danielson literally training, going from Washington, going from Washington State all the way to Texas to train at Shawn Michaels' school. That would have been like, I always say my dream match for Bret Hart, like we didn't get, would have been Kurt Angle. My dream match for Shawn Michaels that we didn't get would have been Bryan Danielson.
Yeah, I love Danielson, but I think Seth or AJ would have been my number one for Shawn. If I could pick one, honestly, like we probably had it in one iteration or top, but like a match where it was taken seriously, I think Ziggler and Shawn, where they can both go no restricted plate go, that would be really, really fucking good too.
They only had the only time they really interacted was when Ziggler was in the Spirit Squad, and that wasn't like,
another one. If I can time machine and have a guy wrestle Shawn now, and like fantasy booking, there's 2 TNA guys I would love to see wrestle Shawn Michaels right now. One of them Canadian, one of them a giant Shawn guy. I would love to see Shawn Ace Austin. I think that would be unbelievable. And Shawn Speedball Mike Bailey. Like, I think Speedball is a Shawn guy because he has a lot of Shawn gear. If you ever see Speedball outside of his ring gear, he does own Shawn Michaels chalk line. But another good matchup.
And it really is interesting that there's Shawn's influence is kind of spread a little more than Bret's like that, because it really has changed a lot of the style. Like you do have like a lot of that Bret style in Bloodsport, and guys like a Biff Busick and guys like a Timothy Thatcher, guys who are a little more map-based, ground-based, like a Tony Deppen, like a guy like that, where you have obviously the Young Bucks heavily influenced by Shawn Michaels. You have like it's funny because NXT and AEW are kind of the rivals, but a lot of those guys at the top of AEW are really from that Shawn tree, except for the guys who really wear the Bret stuff proudly, like an FTR. Like a Daniel Garcia is more of that Bret kind of. But
here's the thing, and I'm gonna tip a hat to both sides. I'm a Shawn guy through and through. But at the end of the day, if you were alive in that generation, you're both. There's no other way around. You're both, because every wrestler who's come out of, like, anyone who's influenced by those two guys, you're a hybrid of the two. CM Punk can sit here and say all day long he's a Bret guy, he's a Bret guy, he's a Bret guy. But goddamn, he's pulling some Shawn Michaels stuff in the ring right now. He's playing the line of both. Their styles combined gave us a moment, a feud in wrestling that has carried the test of time, where they have become the benchmark of what professional wrestling is now. And every 100%. Good wrestler from here on out is you look at them and go, I see Bret and I see Shawn. I see Bret and I see Shawn. And I'll splash in a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But most wrestlers today are looking at your Brets and Shawns, and they're your two blueprints.
100%.
And that's unbelievable. Yes, this the Saudi Arabia match, you've seen it. It wasn't awesome. I'm not even going to go into it. But and that second act for Shawn is really what changed the perception of Shawn and the way everything went down for Shawn. And now, from 2018 on, Shawn's third act here, where he becomes he runs like, so NXT goes from this amazing product that was Triple H's baby, then Vince kind of strips it from Triple H and gives it to Pritchard and a few other people, and it sucks. And then it's at its absolute lowest point, and they say, you can't have any more indie guys, you can't have anyone over 30, you can't have any of this, and now we're going to give you a bunch of college athletes who don't even know wrestling, make a company, and you're in charge of it, Shawn. And you're like, and it sucked for a very long time.
It did.
One of the things I used to always say to everyone when we talked about on Tornado Tag, I'm like, I'm aware it sucks, but I enjoy watching it because I can slowly see now, does it belong on TV? That's what we used to say. Should you be watching progression like this on TV? And I used to say yes, because now the payoff is, if you stuck through those Color Splash 2.0 days, and most of the roster is pretty similar to what it is right now, would add a little bit here and there, you got to watch the progression of these young talent turn into megastars, and they're getting really good. And it's getting to the point where if you're kind of bored with
bloodline, and you're kind of bored with Judgment Day, and you're kind of bored with that storylines we've been getting for the past 3 to 4 years over and over and over again, NXT is slowly creeping up as this brand that people are taking seriously again. And they have a really good young roster, and it's turning things around. Yeah. And Shawn is at the helm of that. Shawn and now definitely. Shawn and Regal behind the scenes kind of helping out with that too.
And they did loosen some stuff up. You have obviously all the TNA people that have come in, the Zachary Wentz's and Joe Hendrys of the world. You have like an Ethan Page who has come in, Sean Spears. So they did kind of loosen up to have some more like kind of player coach type guys. And I'm always gonna have fun watching Obafemi just throw people around. That guy is something. And they've really, NXT has only ever been as strong as its women's division, and that women's division is firing again. Division is firing again. Roxanne is so good, and now you have Julia, Stephanie Vaquer, and so many of the homegrown people, the Sol Rucas and all those people. It's interesting. They've really done a great job rehabbing that thing, and it's not quite the ROH with a budget it was when it was in its black and gold heyday, but it's found that interesting middle ground of these really promising developmental guys, and then some guys that can also and women people that can really do some amazing stuff. And just this whole thing is working with this next in line, because Braun Breaker, I mean, he's a legacy guy, but he is so clearly a star. Trick Williams has that little bit of that extra something with him. He was a football player. Obafemi was a shot putter, and look at what he's doing. Tiffany Stratton was such a great success story from there. She was a gymnast. I believe Sol Ruca, also a gymnast, and I think she's going places. So it is really something. And you still have that occasionally, that one segment or two segments where it's like, this is bad acting and bad lighting and bad set design for adult movies, let alone wrestling. You still have those on occasion, but other than that, it is really, really, they've done a great job turning that ship around, and people are enjoying it. They're doing really well on CW.
We're gonna get to go watch a Shawn Michaels produced Halloween Havoc in a couple weeks.
Yeah, that's gonna be a fun time.
Yeah, so just to kind of put a button on this, some other moments, if you look at Shawn outside of wrestling, obviously he did a Playgirl magazine. That was a thing. He did some stuff on an outdoor. He was the host of an outdoor television show.
Hunting show, I believe. Yeah.
Yep. He also during the 2015-2016 NHL season, the Pittsburgh Penguins had a line. One of their lines was called the HBK line.
Yeah, Kessel, I forget all the guys on it. Yeah.
Yeah, they all there, and the line would be they would play Sexy Boy for the line. He was in some movies, not some good ones. He was on some television shows, Pacific Blue, Baywatch. One of the other things with Shawn that not annoyed me but pissed me off is I was a Nintendo guy my whole life, and the brand new WWF Super WrestleMania game dropped, and I couldn't play as Shawn because he was exclusive to Sega. Fuckers.
Oh no.
Yep. But yeah, and then just to kind of go through some of this here is you have the AWA two-time tag team champions with Marty Jannetty, the feud of the year 2008 with Chris Jericho, match of the year 2007 with John Cena for that Monday Night Raw hour-long match, 2008 with Ric Flair, 2009 with The Undertaker, 2010 with The Undertaker, Wrestler of the Year 2008, the Cauliflower Alley Club Lifetime Achievement Louis Has Award 2018. Fun fact, the year he won that, I was in Vegas and didn't know, ran into the Blue Meanie, and I'm like, what are you doing in Vegas? He goes, oh, we're here for the cauliflower thing. I go, oh, he goes, oh, we're giving a huge award away this year to Shawn Michaels. I'm like, and I'm in Vegas the time this is happening. It's like, how could you get me in? He goes, I can't. And I was like,
that's industry only. Yeah, that's industry only.
Yeah. He was the worst angle of the year in 2018 with Triple H and The Undertaker and Kane. NWA Central Tag Team Champions one time with Marty Jannetty. AWA South Tag Team Champions twice with Marty Jannetty. Feud of the Decade 2009 with Chris Jericho. Feud of the Year with Chris Jericho 2008. Match of the Decade 2000 to 2009 with Ric Flair. Match of the Decade 2010 to 2019 with The Undertaker. Match of the Year 93, 94, 95, 96, 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009. Just to go through those people: Marty Jannetty, Razor Ramon, Diesel, Bret Hart Iron Man match, Chris Benoit Triple H triple threat match, Kurt Angle, Vince McMahon, John Cena. He got match of the year with Vince McMahon. I'm just putting that out there.
The PWI awards are worked.
Yeah. You shut up.
That's Shawn
Your mouth.
That's Shawn Michaels Diesel match in 1995. It's not even the best Diesel match in 1995.
John Cena, Ric Flair, Undertaker, 2010 career versus match of the year there. Most inspirational wrestler of the decade, 2000 to 2009. Most inspirational wrestler of the year, 2010. Most popular wrestler, 95-96. Ranked number 1 in PWI 96. Ranked number 10 in 2003. 33 and number 5 in tag teams for PWI with Jannetty and Diesel respectively. Hall of Fame class 2017. And then there's, WWF 2 champion 3 times, World Heavyweight champion 1 time, Intercontinental champion 3 times. Also had 3 different variants of that belt: white strap, black strap, blue belt. WWF and World Tag Team champions 5 times, 2 with Diesel, 1 with Stone Cold, 1 with John Cena, 1 with Triple H. First Grand Slam champion, fourth Triple Crown champion, which I'm gonna be honest, I don't know what that means. Slammy Award,
Triple Crown, I believe this is pre-European title. I believe that is just tag title, Intercontinental title, WWF title. And the first guy would have been Pedro Morales, the second was Bret, the third was Diesel, the fourth was Shawn.
I don't know what they're giving him credit for with this.
Diesel actually did it all in 1 year.
Diesel, Triple Crown champion, yeah.
Yeah, so it was Pedro. It's just WWF title, IC title, tag title, because back then those were the only titles before the European title. Diesel, though, the crazy thing with Diesel is he did that all in 1 year. 1994, he won all 3 belts.
Yeah. 15 Slammy Awards, 2 Hall of Fames, individually in 11, and then with DX in 2019. And then, like I said, there's more Wrestling Observer newsletters that you can go down here. There's more. You can go through the 15 Slammy Awards, but it's just, once again, dude was great what he did.
Yeah.
And now he's giving back to the business even to this day with NXT and still growing. And that's going to do it for the icon, for the best there is, best. I'm just stealing everyone else's monikers. The boy toy, the Heartbreak Kid, Mr. WrestleMania.
The Hulkster, the Nature Boy,
Shawn Michaels. That's gonna be our wrap up for these two. They both got almost 2 hours, which I think is very well deserved for 2 people.
These are 2 careers you can't really rush through because they are so storied and
we rushed through the second and third act. There's probably
for both guys. For both guys.
Both.
And Shawn's career was so long, and because of that second act, because of that longevity,
and he's not done.
And he's not done. Yeah, he's still involved. He's still probably never going to wrestle again, and that's probably for the best. But he's, although I'm sure if you gave him 6 months to get ready, he could probably still put on a good match. I bet he could. Yeah,
I guarantee he can. Especially with now the medical doctors and probably all the elements he have, they're fixing people up like crazy. But so that's essentially the super kick he did to Shelton Benjamin's one of the best.
Oh, amazing! Yes.
The State of the Union. Yep, that they just redid the State of the Union not too long ago. I think one of my best super kicks, I don't know if it was to Bret or if it was to Stone Cold, but he was getting chased to the back, or he was chasing Diesel to the back or something, and Diesel hits the curtain, and as soon as someone hit the curtain, they just fell backwards, and you just see Shawn step to the curtain like he hit, like they baited him to chase him through the curtain, and as soon as he did, Shawn met him with the super kick or whatever. It was so good. But
and that move too, like just. That is the epitome of the move you can just hit out of nowhere. Like the RKO, the stunner, just the move you can do to anybody at any time. That move really did take him to another level.
The elbow drop, the showstopper, was it a great elbow drop too? That like the flash bulbs coming off when he would drop that big elbow. Trying to think of another.
Because if you go back to like when he had that suplex, like the suplex was fine, but it wasn't a finish.
Like a side suplex. It was
they called it like the teardrop suplex. Yeah, it was not good.
What would you like? What else would you say real quick before we wrap it up? Like iconic Shawn Michael signature, like his spark up is really popular. The kip up, the flying,
the warm up, the band.
The warm up the band. His turnbuckle spot, Bret did to the chest. Shawn did like a flare version, but he sold it like a psycho where he hit flip up over.
The high cross body off the top, but he would do it with his back turned. He would like twist in the air. That was always really good.
Yeah. The moonsault from the apron to the ring, from the ring apron to the outside that he hit on a table. That was kind of a big thing for him. He wasn't like a super high flyer, but he did some like he wasn't doing 450s, but he wasn't afraid to jump off shit.
Right. Like yeah, and if you just look at Shawn's move set, it's like, oh, well, what was so impressive about that? But it's like it was just the way he could tie everything together. It was the way he could convey emotion. He could tell a story in the ring. That was what was really special about Shawn Michaels.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll do it. Anything you want to talk about, plug, before we get out of here?
No, we did it all at the front. We're good.
Yeah, there's one thing I want to talk about, but I want to save it for next week before we do our debate. And maybe I'll give you a little homework to go. So I'm kind of obsessed with this new character on the independent scene, the gay Kane.
Oh, Gain, yes,
Gain, the gay Kane. I wanna pose to you for next week, if we can reboot older wrestling characters but make them gayer versions of themselves, who would be the greatest reimagining of old characters but super gay versions?
Okay.
I think it'd be a lot of fun. Well, obviously Kane's funny because he's a huge right-wing conservative in real life, and now his character's being portrayed.
So are a lot of wrestlers.
Yeah. So first off, right off the bat, I'll just give you one of mine. Ultimate Warrior, a super gay Ultimate Warrior. I just think it could be a great slap in the face.
The way he can do that is he can paint up his face, and he can have tassels and
yeah. But make it even, and then be like, I will soak that thing.
All right.
I just want like I need him to while he's burning in hell to be like, God damn it. Because here's the thing, I would be a huge fan of Gay Ultimate Warrior just to be a slap in the face to the old Ultimate Warrior. That's my pick. If someone can just make a huge gay Ultimate Warrior, I'm all for it. But that's just one for now. But everyone else in the chat, that's your homework. Now that gay Kane is a thing, what other characters could we reimagine as fun gay characters? Not to make fun of the gay community, but just to just have some fun with it. But that's just the one I would say is Ultimate Warrior, just because fuck the Ultimate Warrior, because he was so anti-gay. It'd be fun to reimagine, take back his character and make it super gay. Could you imagine Effie as gay Ultimate Warrior?
Oh, that would be great. Yeah.
Someone clip that and send it. I want it. Yeah, just to slap that guy in the face. But that'd be a lot of fun. All right, that'll do it. Tornado Tag Podcast, your brand new champions, baby. Get a good look at them here. It is so. If you join the membership, if you guys want to test it out right here, go to your emojis in the chat. You guys can put emojis in the chat. Guess what has an emoji now, VP? They can put this faceplate in the chat right now. So there you go. The tornado tag thing is in the chat, as well as the IC champion are both in the below. So you can pop them in the chat if you're a member. If you want to become a member, it helps us out so much. Grab that $5 tier so you can see all that content before it comes out. Member, not just the live shows. Make sure you go check out those 5 questions. Really support it, show some love. Let's get this channel going. Share this out to some friends. Let's keep growing. Tons and stuff is coming. We'll see you guys all very, very soon. For the next one, we'll be back with our debate episode.
The gloves come off.
The gloves come off as we debate Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels. Just one time here. Boy, look at all that. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. They actually didn't put the white strap IC in there. I don't know why. But we'll get to that next week. And then after the debate episode will be the Freebirds. We'll be doing the Freebirds on the 22nd.
We're going to Bad Street.
Yeah, and then on the 29th, we'll be doing the history of Halloween Havoc, and then we're wide open for the month of November. So we'll take some suggestions of anything you guys want to do. We do have some ideas and stuff. Also, remember, any shows you want me and Lily to go back and rewatch, or maybe Lily to see for the first time as a brand new wrestling fan or newer wrestling fan, put some suggestions in there. Comment them on our social media. Let's get engagement going. Likes, comments, shares, anything. Hit up the Instagrams, the Twitters, the Facebooks. Follow us all. Let's get this community going more than just the Discord and going from the live streams and the chat rooms. Let's blow it up all over the place. Let's show this interest. You listen, I'm going to be honest. We've had a lot of really cool moments, myself and BP Burke, in this wrestling industry. And it comes 100% of the value that you guys put on us by supporting and showing love and sharing our stuff, and making us cooler than we probably are. And that's all because of that love and support. So we really appreciate it. Let's kick it up another notch, ending 2024, going into 2025. The cat loves this belt, by the way. Lays right in the middle of it. That's like his spot.
I'm about to knock it off the table.
Yeah, no, he's good with it. He just lays in it. That's his little spot. He chills in there. But that's gonna do it. We'll see you guys next time. Tornado Tag Podcast. Shawn, Mike.
There it goes.
Bye.